If you come to be suspicious of your own fiancé, would you be the jerk for opening their mail and subsequently finding out that they have been lying? We'll get to that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for making my wife wrap her own Christmas presents? I, 32-year-old male, hate wrapping up presents. That's why I usually just get either stuff gift wrapped at the store or put gifts in a gift bag with some tissue paper. My wife, 30, hates when her gifts aren't wrapped up pretty so she can take pictures of them to post. A couple of the gifts I got her this year are from online merchants that don't do gift wrapping. She saw me putting them in gift bags and made a face. She said she really wanted them wrapped up nice. We've had this discussion many times. My father was a cheap jerk that used to scream at my mom for wasting money on gift wrapping. I like gift bags because they can be reused. I literally get like a panic attack thinking about wrapping a gift. Yes, I know it's stupid. Yes, I have therapy to deal with my many issues. So she ended up wrapping her own gifts, but she's mad at me for not making an effort. She said I needed to get over it and just man up and learn to wrap gifts. The reason I left the gifts I ordered online in the shipping boxes is because my wife likes to open stuff. I don't know why. She took the boxes out of the bags and then wrapped the shipping boxes. She didn't want to remove them from the shipping boxes until she opens them. Does anybody else think that even if it's not like the best wrapping job, it's still good enough? I try to wrap my own gifts, but I'm gonna be honest, it ends up looking pretty rough sometimes. Doesn't matter though when you're just gonna rip it all apart. Either way, I don't think anybody could be a jerk for putting all the presents in bags with the paper on top, right? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not everybody here are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for telling a sales lady I don't care about her opinions? So, I'm 20-year-old male. I went to the eye doctor a few weeks ago and decided I should get some new glasses since I've had mine a few years. Well, my mom and I went to get me some glasses yesterday. I'm still on her insurance and she wanted to help. We walked in and right away the sales lady I'll call Sally asked if we needed help. My mom said, "You need some glasses," and I said, "Yeah, but I'm just looking." Sally started picking out different frames and making me try them on. None of them were my style, and whenever I was looking at pairs I liked, she would bother me to come try some she picked on. Not sure if she thought my style was different than it actually is or what, but she kept picking out big nerdy glasses, types that someone would wear to try to look nerdy. So I said I didn't like them, or they were too big on my face, or flat out said I looked like a nerd. My mom just said, it's her job to be helpful. I was getting more annoyed because I'm buying them, but can't even look for something I like, because Sally kept calling me over to try some on. So after probably 10 pairs Sally picked, I said, I'm not really into those, they make me look like a geek. Sally said, well, I think they look cute on your face and maybe you'd get used to them. I said, I don't really care what you think, I'm the one that's buying them and has to wear them. I don't like these styles. Then I told my mom I was leaving and walked outside. My mom said I was unnecessarily rude and acted childish, that the sales lady was just doing her job and trying to help, and I acted really immature. She wanted me to go back inside, but I refused. Last time I got glasses, the salesperson asked if I needed help. I said no, that I was looking, so they let me look, and I told them when I found some I liked. I don't like being harassed when I'm shopping in general, especially with things that affect my appearance. I don't really think it's that bad to tell a stranger that their opinions don't matter, but my mom said it's rude. Am I the jerk? I'm willing to bet that this place is heavily commission-based with selling frames. But I'm right there with OP, I wear glasses too, and almost every time I get new glasses, I just want to stop and look around, but there almost always was some salesperson glued to the hip trying to find some suggestion for me. Buying a new pair of glasses is a big decision because you'll likely wear them for years, and I hate how rushed I feel into trying to make a decision on what frame to pick because there's somebody right there like, how about this one? How about that one? Do those feel alright? Do you like them? This next story is, am I the jerk for moving my girlfriend into my house despite my roommate's wishes? I, 38-year-old male, own a 3-bedroom house. About 8 months ago, an old friend Joe, 37-year-old male, moved to my area and I offered him a place to stay until he found something of his own. I'm sure you all know what the housing market is like right now, so he's still with me. There's no lease because he's still looking, but he's currently paying me $500 a month plus $120 in utilities for a bedroom and a private bathroom. a very good price for the area. My girlfriend of almost 2 years, Amy, 32-year-old female, has been dealing with some serious health issues for the last few months, and I would like her to move in with me. She was slightly hesitant to lose her own apartment because she has an amazing deal, but she has come around to the idea since certain things are difficult for her to do on her own at the moment. She and her 2 cats will be moving in by mid-January. Joe is very much against this, and even more so because I don't want any rent money from Amy. She has high out-of-pocket healthcare costs right now, and I don't want her worrying about having the money. She works remotely and will continue to work, but stress will not help her condition. Joe doesn't want to share space with another person. He stated that he's especially uncomfortable living with any woman he's not related to or in a relationship with, and doesn't want to live with Amy's cats. He's expressed that he feels it's unfair for him to shoulder the cost of another person and wants to reduce his rent, but I don't believe he's shouldering any additional costs. Nothing will increase for him. I offered to reduce his utilities to $100, but he called that an offensive offer. He's been complaining all week, and this morning, I invited him to shut up or move out. He told me I'm being unbelievably selfish by ignoring his desire to be comfortable at home and violating his rights as a tenant. As far as I can tell, that appears to be entirely untrue. I wasn't clear here. He absolutely does have tenant rights since he's been living here this long and is entitled to 30 days notice. I meant nothing I can find supports another person moving in or what they pay being a violation of those rights. Am I the jerk? You're already giving this guy a great deal. If you want to move your own partner into your own house, could you possibly be the jerk for that? Our next story is, am I the jerk for uninviting my soon-to-be mother-in-law for my wedding? I, female 27, am engaged to my fiancé, male 45, and we plan to get married in July. I have 2 kids with my late husband. My soon-to-be mother-in-law, who I'll refer to as mother-in-law, does not know this full context, as I'm a private person and I'm not overly close with her. He passed when I was 23, and I only really discuss his passing once I'm incredibly close with someone. I've only spoken to mother-in-law at a handful of holidays and never had a conversation that extended far beyond the basics. Now, to get into this, we recently hosted our first Thanksgiving. I felt very accomplished and was excited to share this moment with my soon-to-be family. The only issue being that I'd totally forgotten the mashed potatoes, which seemed to have mother-in-law in a very pissy mood. Thankfully, fiance's sister offered to go to the store to buy some instant mashed potatoes, to which I was very grateful. She asked me to check in on her youngest daughter, who was in an upstairs bedroom with my kids, and had been very quiet recently. Moms of Reddit know this is never a good thing. I of course agree. I go to check on them and find them fully engrossed in Encanto. Left, sitting at the table downstairs, were my soon-to-be mother-in-law, father-in-law, brother-in-law, fiancé, and most importantly, sister-in-law's oldest daughter, female 15. As I make my way downstairs, I do note the silence at the table, but I don't think much of it. At the dinner, however, while everyone is leaving, sister-in-law's oldest daughter pulls me aside and asks to speak to me. I ask her if everything's okay, and she explains that while I was gone, mother-in-law made up a comment, something to the note of how she didn't get why fiancé would get with someone who's already used up, and that running around with someone like that would ruin his reputation among men, along with another comment that she said she wasn't comfortable repeating. She said she wouldn't have felt right if she hadn't told me. I thanked her profusely, honestly completely in shock at what I had just heard. Mother-in-law had already left at this point. I'm a very confrontational person because I believe it gets drama over with. I called her and asked her if it was true, and she got really quiet before admitting that it was. She said something along the lines of, "I'm glad you know how everyone feels now. I was getting tired of hiding it." When I started to cry, she replied, and this is a direct quote, "You act like a slut, you get treated like one." In a moment of anger, I uninvited her for my wedding. My fiancé is very upset and is threatening to leave if I don't fix all of this now. He and our friends are all calling me the jerk, and many have been ostracizing me. I am open to criticism, but I really don't think I did anything wrong. So, am I the jerk for uninviting my soon-to-be mother-in-law from my wedding? She didn't have the slightest clue what she was talking about, and she went and threw around judgment. Your fiancé who knows the context not backing you up and in fact putting you down for it is a huge red flag. In my opinion, almost irredeemable, wouldn't you guys agree? This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to let my nephew sit in my car? Earlier this month, I received a promotion which I'd been working towards my entire career at this point. I decided to celebrate by purchasing an expensive luxury car for myself. Fast forward to today when my brother and I had plans to drive to our parents and spend the Christmas weekend there before driving back, as we both live close, while our parents are 3 hours out. He asked if we could take my new car, as that would give him and his wife a chance to see it and ride along in it, which I have zero issue with and would gladly agree to. However, I replied to his text and told him, I don't want to take the Urus, as L, nephew, tends to make a mess like he did the last time in my car. Will you get him to behave, or should we take your car? This prompted my brother to get offended and insinuate that I was acting like a piece of entitled poop because I think I'm doing better than them, so I look down upon their lives. None of this is true. It's all because of my nephew's history of spoiled behavior, which bothers me. My nephew is 7 years old and a menace with no care for his or anyone's belongings. The last time I let my brother borrow my previous car for a few days while his was in the shop, he texted me to let me know that said nephew spilled his juice all over the leather seats, or accidentally used his markers to draw on the seats. I use accidentally in quotations as I know my nephew and how spoiled he is. My brother and his wife let him get away with anything at home, whether it's screaming tantrums or buying him whatever he points his finger to in a store. I told my brother that I was upset as my seats were ruined, but he texted me back telling me how, it's not a big deal, I can clean it off, and that nephew's just a kid, you can't control that. I was so upset as I trusted him to return my car to me in the same condition I gave it to him in, but here is my brother who doesn't seem to understand teaching his kid basic manners. Now, it's been a few hours since the argument, and my brother hasn't replied to my calls. I understand how he might feel hurt, as he was looking forward to seeing the car, and because I caused conflict right before Christmas, which hurts me as well, and makes me feel like the villain here. But at the same time, I still think I'm right because this car is the most expensive thing I've purchased, and I refuse to let my nephew in it because I know my brother and his wife won't control his behavior. Am I the jerk? Family or not, if you've got an awful kid and you don't control them, I don't blame you for not wanting them around your stuff. This next story is, am I the jerk for not sharing my inheritance with my cousins? When I, 24-year-old male, was a kid, a young widow moved into the house next to us. She was only 19 then, now 36. She was no contact with her family, and my parents kind of took her in. Dad helped her around the house, and Mom always cooked extra for her. She started attending college, and my parents wanted to make her life a bit easier since she had no one. To me, she was and is Auntie J. She babysat me, took me shopping, and gave me as many gifts as my parents. She was always there. My paternal grandma also adored her and treated her like her own, so when she passed away, she made Aunt J her executor. J was pre-law, but she switched to business management. My dad and siblings got a few things, but grandkids got everything else. My grandma's will was clear. She didn't want any fighting between grandkids, so her will stated to sell everything apart from what was left to her kids and distribute the money evenly between all 7 grandkids, even if it meant we'll lose some chunk of money as a result. I guess she saw something I was too stupid to see. Jay did it as Grandma requested, and she gave a check to all 7 of us. We each got a little over $100,000. My cousins were ecstatic. They were all older than me. They paid off their debts or put deposits on houses, etc. That was 6 years ago. I was 18 then. I didn't know what to do with my money as my parents saved up for my college. And Jay suggested to invest most of it and use a little bit to get something for myself. Since it's her actual job to invest other people's money, I gave it to her after discussing it with my parents. I went to college, and between my parents' savings and mine, I had enough to not dip into the $100K. Jay gave the same advice to all the others, but after using some money to settle debts and etc., they blew the rest of it on cars, vacations, etc. As we couldn't do Christmas dinner this year, the whole family decided to meet early and relax for a day at my parents' house. I got into a Harvard business program and I excitedly shared the news. After the congratulations, the topic naturally diverted to money and scholarships. I said I'm good, and I don't really need any scholarships. They were confused, and I explained to them Aunt Jay helped me invest, and now I have more than enough to live rest of my life comfortably. I guess I might be the jerk here. I didn't brag about the money, but I praised Jay to high heaven, how she was a genius, etc. I mean, she turned 100,000 to 3 million in 6 years. Nothing happened that day, but I started getting calls next day for money. When I refused, they started accusing Jay of being unfair and that she gave me more money than the others because she loved me. They refused to believe that Jay turned 100,000 into 3 million. They think part of it is still from grandma's inheritance and that Jay scammed them. They said they'll sue, and Jay said, "Go ahead. Mom wants me to give a little bit to others to avoid the drama, but I don't want to." So, am I the jerk? All I can say is, a lot of times, a lot of money can bring out some ugly sides of people, family or not. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to help new coworkers while helping old ones? I hesitated for a couple of days on whether I should post or not, since I know that a few of the coworkers are active in this community. They were the ones who showed it to me, so I'll be very vague, sorry. I, male, have been working in this company for a number of years. I'm not Christian, nor am I American. That is to say that I don't mind working on Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, or the 4th of July. On the other hand, I come from a religion that has 3 major holidays, and those I prefer not to work on. When I first started working here, we came to an arrangement. I would handle the office work during their holidays, but since I can't do it all on my own, they'll have to still do some stuff from home. But at least they won't have to come into the office. By the way, there's 5 people on my team. In exchange, they handle all my work for me during my holidays. Our managers were okay with this arrangement, and they would turn a blind eye to some of us not coming to the office for days on end. For Christmas, I would usually take on their work from the 20th to the 28th. Fast forward to earlier this year, 2 of my older coworkers retired, but they trained their replacements before leaving. They brought up the deal with them and they seemed on board. When it was time for the first religious holiday that I was going to be off on, they refused to do their share of my work. After some back and forth, they say that it isn't fair that I get to do absolutely no work during my time off, while they will still have to work from home when it comes to their holidays. We tried to explain that it's easier for 4 people to cover a single person's work, while it is impossible for a single person to take on 5 people's work. They still said it wasn't fair. I tried talking to my manager, but he said he couldn't do anything since this was a very informal arrangement, and he couldn't force them to participate. That was fair, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't frustrated. Thankfully, the other 2 members said that they're capable of doing the work, and that was that. Last week, I was arranging with my 2 teammates on how to manage the workload for their week off for Christmas. Since it was the work of 2 people, I told them I could swing it without bothering them for the whole week. The new coworkers overheard and were like, 2 people? What about us? I told them straight away that I will not be taking on any of their work. That they didn't help me for the last 3 holidays and I wasn't helping them now. I also asked why they were surprised, considering I didn't do any of their work previously. All they could come up with was, "But this is Christmas." They went to our manager and he told them exactly what he told me. Now they're angry. Apparently they promised their families a week of free time, and one of them even booked tickets to spend Christmas with his family in another state. So, am I the jerk? They wanted their cake and they wanted to eat it too. These people are selfish. Not only is OP not the jerk, they should not feel bad about this at all. Our next story is, am I the jerk for calling my partner when I drive home? I, female 28, call my partner, male 29, when I drive home from different places. I call when I'm on my way home from work. I work late at night, so calling helps keep me awake. He said he's fine when I call on my way home from work. I also call when I come home from most places. My parents, the shops, getting fuel from daycare, just to chat. The other day he got annoyed and angry, saying that calling every time I'm on my way home is too much, and that he doesn't want me to do it anymore. I said he was overreacting, because we both work and have a child, 2-year-old female, that chatting on the phone helps make up for time we don't get to ourselves. He's asked that I don't call unless it's home from work late or an emergency, because he feels as though he either has to drop everything and answer or wait for the phone to ring and not do much else. Am I the jerk, or is he overreacting? I just think it's too overbearing and too much. I get why it's easy for somebody to see a partner do this and think, oh, they're just being selfish. How dare they not make time every day for a 10, 15, 20-minute phone call? But this kind of thing I think builds up over time, and it's just annoying, and that phone rings out of the blue, and inwardly you're kind of like, oh my god, it's every day with this. Our next story is, am I the jerk for using the desk of a car salesman to work at a dealership? I'm at a Lexus car dealership where I'm waiting for my car to get serviced. While I'm out there, I had to work and I didn't have a desk where I could work. I ended up using an empty desk that belongs to a car salesman. He shows up after 30 to 45 minutes of me using his desk and tries to intimidate me in front of everyone, asking me how I would feel if he used my office. At first I said I'm sorry and was leaving, but he kept asking me the same question as to how I would feel if he came into my office and started to work. First of all, it's a car dealership and I'm waiting for my car. I didn't walk into the dealership and solicit his desk without any business. Secondly, I was going to go when he asked me to leave, but he wanted to create a scene in front of everyone. I felt embarrassed, but I didn't know if what I did was rude like he'd interpreted. Our next story is, am I the jerk for opening my fiance's mail and calling her a liar? I, 28-year-old male, and my fiancée, 31-year-old female, have been together for about 4 years, and we've been engaged for about 6 months. We met at a restaurant where we were both bartenders, and during this time, I was also working towards a graduate degree. My fiancé continues to work in the service industry, and I've taken on a new role since graduating, and do fairly well. I've always had an idea about how much money my fiancé makes since we've had the same job. However, my fiancé also sends money to her family and I never knew the specifics. For example, how much money was being sent and for what. I've lent her money in the past when we were just boyfriend and girlfriend, and she always paid me back quickly. I emphasized to her that if she ever needs any help financially to please ask me first, because she's asked me in the past and paid me back when she said she would. I had no reason to believe that she was in any financial trouble. Now that we're planning a wedding and we're going to be spending the rest of our lives together, I'm more curious about her financial situation. I ask her things like how much money she saved, if she has any debt, etc. She hates having this conversation and really tries to avoid it. Eventually, I get a rough ballpark estimate from her, but she will never show me proof if I ask for it. She is so uncomfortable with the conversation, and it always ends with me still not being sure how financially secure she is. Fast forward to today, I open our mailbox and see a letter from her bank that's addressed to her. I decide to open the letter, and the letter states that a recent credit request has been denied due to current or past delinquency on one or more of her accounts. I text her and ask her if she applied for a credit increase and got denied, and she said no. I then respond with a screenshot of the letter, and she gets really upset. She's accusing me of being disrespectful towards her for assuming she was in financial trouble when she's come to me for money in the past. And she said that I should never have opened her mail since she never opens mine. She says she isn't in debt and everything is fine and that she didn't request anything from the bank. I asked her to send me a screenshot of her credit card statement to prove she wasn't in debt, and she refused, saying I was already all up in her stuff. The conversation ended with me pretty much calling her a liar since the letter she got in the mail clearly states otherwise. I know the letter was addressed to her, but since we're getting married, her financial situation affects me now too. I feel bad for hurting her feelings, but I believe this is information I need to know, and I feel she is deliberately hiding something from me. Am I the jerk for opening my fiance's mail and calling her a liar when she refuses to show me proof of her financial situation? I think both sides are in the wrong here. OP's obviously very clearly a jerk for going and opening that mail, but the fiance's being defensive, shady, and lying too. This next story is, am I the jerk for not allowing my son to attend the event that he planned? For the last few years, we've been doing a summer camp for the kids at my son's, 16-year-old male, school. We own land near a large lake with cabins and a mess hall with little use for it. Our son pretty much ran everything, but we did have adults there. Recently, he wanted to do a Christmas event at the camp. Ice skating, sledding, that sort of thing. But he said guys only. I thought he was joking at first, but he was serious. Then he said he wanted this Christmas event to be an annual thing, and for all of them to be guys only too. I said no, absolutely not. He argued that the land wasn't ours anyway, and belongs to Grandpa, so we called him and got the go-ahead to do his Christmas event. I'm not allowing him to go, nor will I allow him to attend any future summer camps if it's guys only. My husband, father, and of course son think I'm wrong for this. Am I? I think the main thing I'm gonna say OP is in the wrong for is they don't even explain why they're at odds with this. Do they think it's sexist? Do they think it's not inclusive enough? They don't give any reasoning as to why they are opposed to it. What's inherently wrong with a guys-only event, especially for a 16-year-old? This next story is, am I the jerk for reminding my dad he's not my son's parent? I'm 26 now. When I was a freshman in college, me and this older woman hooked up and she got pregnant. There was a lot of drama. My son Matthew was born, and her crazy family wanted to adopt him, but my dad ended up being the one who adopted him. My parents, who have been divorced for 20 years, told me that they'd rather I go back to college and establish myself so I can be the father I needed to be for Matthew. I was still a kid myself. Maybe I wasn't there every day. Now I'm about to get married, and my fiance loves Matthew as much as I do. We both make good money and just bought a house. Over the years, my dad started to treat me like I'm just Matthew's older brother. He's 7, and I'm actually a responsible adult. Basically, I want Matthew to start living with me, and I take charge of him. My dad's being a jerk now about it, even going as far as to tell me that I need permission from him to spend time with my son. He's my son regardless of what paperwork my parents made me sign. A lot of things bother me about how my dad's taking care of my son, and my mom sides with him every time. I would do things very differently. I reminded them that my goal is to take him back. My dad said that's not going to happen. I reminded him that he's not his dad and never will be. Then I told him that I don't even agree with how he's running things and I can do better. Obviously we know how OP feels, but how does the kid feel? They're 7, was raised with a certain way of life with their legal adopted parents. What does Matthew want? Our next story is, am I the jerk for not inviting them to my Christmas party after they didn't invite me to their wedding? I throw a pretty big Christmas party every year, going on a decade now. A few years ago at one I threw, my friend Tara met my former coworker Tony and they hit it off. They dated for a while, and 2 years later, once again at my Christmas party, she showed up with a ring on her finger and they announced for the first time that they were engaged. I was super happy for them. They got married this spring. We didn't get invited. When I was sending around my party invitations this year, I didn't see any reason to invite them back if they didn't think I was worthy of making their guest list. I've known them both for years, basically introduced them, and they literally announced their engagement at my home. It got back to me today that they're very upset with us for not inviting them this year, that my party is something they consider special and they think I'm being petty. A couple friends mentioned that it was a smaller wedding and they feel like I'm just punishing them. It wasn't though. There were probably 200 people there and I knew at least 50 of them, and I was a little surprised at some of the names that made the cut over us. I didn't make a stink about it or anything, but I don't see why I should welcome them into my home again after being snubbed like that. My partner thinks I should just let it go and invite them back, but I don't see a reason why I should. Am I the jerk? Even if they did have a smaller wedding, wouldn't you want to reach out to people who you feel might feel snubbed and say, hey, sorry, we're having a smaller wedding, that's just why you're not invited? They literally gave you no notification, they didn't reach out at all. How are you supposed to feel? Tell them that you're having a smaller party this year, that's why you can't invite them. Our next story is, Am I the jerk for correcting my uncle when he was wrong about his daughter's age and saying, "What kind of a father doesn't even know how old his child is?" My uncle is neglecting my cousin Lily, 16-year-old female. This started about 4 years ago when his wife died, and since then he's been withdrawn. He remarried 2 years ago and is obsessed with his stepchildren but completely ignores Lily. I'm 18-year-old male and close with Lily. He just doesn't care about her. She can be away all day and come back at 3 a.m. and he wouldn't notice or care. At this point, he doesn't know her as a person at all. He forgot her birthday this year, but my sister and I, along with a few of Lily's friends, threw a small birthday party for her though. Last weekend on Saturday, my uncle was visiting us and was talking to my mom, his sister, about random stuff. And during this conversation, he mentioned that Lily's 15 and can handle whatever they were talking about. I overheard it and corrected him with, "Lily's 16 as of 3 weeks ago. You forgot her birthday again, just like last year." And then him and my mom went quiet. Then he said, "Yeah, he'll make it up to her," and I continued, "What kind of father doesn't even know how old his own child is?" And that, I think, made him quite upset, as my mom asked me to apologize. I said, "For what? Telling the truth?" and left. I gave Lily the heads up about what happened, and my uncle ended up trying to talk to her on Sunday night. He took his time, which didn't go well. He later called my mom and accused me of manufacturing the situation between him and Lily, and my mom is taking his side because she believes his parenting is none of my business, and I had no right to call him out on that, even if I believed I was right. I don't even really think this is about his parenting. This is more just calling out the truths as far as who he is as a person. If one person is being lousy to another person, parent or not, are you not allowed to make a surface level comment saying, "You forgot her birthday again just like last year, what kind of father forgets his own child's age?" This next story is, am I the jerk for leaving my babies inside by themselves? I, 20, am a mother of triplets whom are only 2 months old. I never expected ever in my life that I'd be a mother to triplets, so when I first became pregnant, it was definitely the last thing on my mind. I'm home with my babies all day long and had to even transfer my education to online. Sometimes I just need some fresh air, especially when I can't get them to stop crying, and I find myself getting super frustrated to the point of tears. It's honestly so hard, and the dad isn't here to help as he's either at work or at school. My fiance's, 24, parents rented us a main floor apartment, so when I step outside, I'm literally just sitting on the chair right beside the door. Plus I have a baby monitor set up in their room, and it has a camera on it so I can literally see them and hear them. So if anything happened, I'd be able to quickly get to them. Being able to step outside for a few minutes to take a breather is really important to me because I start to have mini panic attacks when I can't get them to stop crying, and I get really frustrated because I just feel super overwhelmed. Being able to just go outside gives me a chance to calm down. My fiance came home to me sitting outside while the babies were crying and freaked out on me, calling me a horrible mom and a bunch of other names that I'm not gonna list here. He thinks that I was being super neglectful and putting the babies in harm's way, and even told his parents, and now everyone seems to be really against me. I grew up in the system. My fiance's family is the only family I've had and ever known, so it breaks my heart that they're so upset with me, but I really don't think I was doing anything wrong or putting my babies in harm's way, but they seem to think otherwise. So here I am wondering if I should apologize for my actions or if I'm the jerk in the situation. Update, I decided to show my fiance this thread. At first he was really upset with me for sharing our personal problems with strangers on the internet, even though it's anonymous. But in the end, when he had a chance to calm down and hear me and all of you guys out, he actually apologized and promised me he'd be more involved with parenting and even is willing to take parenting classes, which I'll hold him to that. I just want to thank everyone for the support that you all give me. It brought tears to my eyes, happy tears, seeing how supportive you all were to a stranger on the internet. I don't think I've ever received this much support before. Well, I'm really glad that OP had a happy ending in this situation. I think it goes without saying that they kind of deserved it. It would be one thing if OP went out there without a baby monitor and maybe took a nap in that chair, but just stepping away for a few minutes while the kids are, I assume, in like a crib, with a monitor, with a video camera, in no way is that neglectful, is it? I think that's probably just about the right thing to do. It's obviously not a common thing, but you hear stories of mothers who, left alone with their babies who don't stop crying, can be pushed too far and do something drastic. So taking a breather every now and then when your kids are perfectly fine is perfectly fine. Am I the jerk for giving my daughter a better present than my son? Our son is 22 and our daughter is 26. She bought a house in July. We know that moving into a new home always comes with unexpected costs, right after you've probably depleted most of your funds. So for Christmas, we gave her $4,000. Our son, we gave a few different gifts totaling somewhere around $800. Our daughter had to work Christmas, but we did Christmas on the 26th and she stayed with us for the holidays from then till yesterday. Our son still lives with us, and today he told us both that he didn't want to say anything while his sister was there, but his feelings were hurt by the disparity in the value of the gifts. We explained that the gifts we got him were tailored to his interests, but his sister's just passed a big life milestone where money's more important to her right now than sentiment. He said it's still hurtful because it feels like we're more proud of her than him. My wife got really frustrated when he said that and asked why he would choose the least charitable interpretation of our actions. He said that's just how he felt and he couldn't control it. I said that we didn't give her money because we're more proud, but because we had experience being new homeowners. And knowing that something always breaks in that first 6 months and it's always expensive. He said that was all fine and good, but it still hurt to get a worse present and feel like an afterthought. My wife asked if he expected us to get him $4,000 worth of gifts. He said no, but he expected the gifts between him and his sister to be equal. My wife said that's the same thing, and my son said it isn't. He said we could have given her the monetary equivalent of what we gave him. I told him that it isn't really fair for him to decide how much we spend on someone else's gift. Furthermore, cash is less personal than gifts, so giving her a cash equivalent to what he got would be her getting the worst gift. He said we weren't listening to him, just justifying. My wife said we didn't need to justify anything and he was being entitled. At that point, he said he didn't want to talk unless everyone was civil and he went to his room. He skipped lunch, breakfast for him, today, and when he left for work, he didn't say goodbye even though I was right by the door. My wife is irritated and my son is clearly resenting us. I can't really decide if we're in the wrong here. On the one hand, we should be able to give our money to whoever we want. On the other, I never want to hurt my son's feelings. Were we wrong? I don't think they were wrong. I think they chose the wrong time to do so. I think they should have given the $4,000 independent of Christmas and kept things level on Christmas between the two kids. Am I wrong there? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? Our next story is, am I the jerk for kicking my friend's boyfriend out of my house after my friends planned a New Year's gathering that I can't attend? Alright, so maybe I'm overreacting, but honestly I've kind of reached a breaking point. I, male 21, am disabled, full-time wheelchair user, and live in a fairly small college town with a couple friends. My roommates and I are part of a larger friend group of 8 people, and I'd say we're all pretty close. I really love my roommates, they're great, but sometimes a little thick. There's one person in the large friend group, let's call him Chris, who's dating a guy, let's call him James. I really don't like James for many reasons, mostly petty ones to be honest. But another fact, James is vegetarian. That's not a problem in itself, but herein comes the issue. All of us planned on getting dinner on New Year's Eve. Smallish college town, there's 3 main restaurants to choose from that are open in the nearby area. One of them is a steakhouse, one of them is a Thai place, one of them is a sort of hippie plant-based place. James immediately suggests the plant-based one. I give a veto as it's completely inaccessible, and give the alternative of ordering takeout from there and bringing it back to my place. But we recently started fostering a cat, and one of our other friends is allergic to cats, so that's also a no-go. None of the other friends are able to host a gathering for various reasons, so I suggest we go to the Thai place. It's a nice spot and reasonably accessible, but apparently James and Chris went to the Thai place last week for their anniversary and don't want to go back. I then suggest the steakhouse, but of course that is loudly shut down because James is a vegetarian. Long story short, the group did a vote between the hippie place and the Thai place, not even including the steakhouse, and the plant-based place won. I admitted that I was slightly frustrated to my roommates, who said that they can bring back food after. I said that wasn't the issue, but sure. So New Year's Eve comes and they get back from dinner, and James and Chris also stop by. At this point it's late and I'm a couple drinks in, and I flat out tell James that I think it's crappy that he suggested and then subsequently campaigned for a place that he knows I can't go to. He said that it's fair because I suggested the steakhouse knowing he's a vegetarian. I told him that it's different because he could have at the very least physically been present. He insisted that it's the same, and I asked him to leave the apartment because I was tired of dealing with his BS. So he left, and my roommates think I overreacted. Maybe I did. What do y'all think? I don't think it's the same no matter how offended James wants to be. I just don't understand how a friend group can have a wheelchair user and overwhelmingly vote to go to a place where OP can't go because they're in a wheelchair. Mainly for the reason of, we ate at the Thai place kinda recently. Just stay home and we'll bring you something. This next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting my sister to attend my wedding and telling my mom to think about me instead of her? I, 30-year-old female, have a younger sister, Liz, 26-year-old female. Liz had a very promising future. She was an Ivy student, always first in the class, beautiful and charming. A few years ago, Liz suffered a traumatic brain injury in a car accident. She doesn't get a lot of social cues, is slow to respond, and sometimes throws tantrums like a moody teen. I love my sister, but the easiest way to explain it is she can act like a child. I'm getting married to my fiancé John, 33-year-old male, in August. I think almost every girl dreams of her wedding, and I'm no different. I'll put it bluntly, I don't want Liz to attend the wedding. Mom would be hovering over her, and she might create a scene during the ceremony or reception. The wedding's at a hotel, so I suggested we book a room for Liz so she's nearby, and if needed, Mom can go check in on her. And I say this because Liz can stay alone and has stayed alone in the past, so that's not an issue. And she's occupied with a movie or something. Mom said I should be including Liz, at least for the ceremony. I tried to explain to her that I just want my perfect day, but she didn't want to hear it. So I said maybe she should think of me for a minute instead of Liz. Mom got mad and is now refusing to talk to me, and Dad thinks I should apologize. A lot of my friends think I'm correct here, but John said I should be more understanding and this will hurt Liz. Am I the jerk? Our next story is, am I the jerk for selling my father's house even though his widow lives there? My 33-year-old female father died recently. He'd been married to his widow Penny for about 7 years before. I wasn't close with my father. We spoke regularly and enjoyed each other's company, but I can't say either of us knew each other well for many years before his death. When he died, I was surprised to learn that he had left his entire estate to me. He put everything in a trust a year before his death, and I'm the sole beneficiary. Besides a small sum that he left to Penny, the lawyer said he was advised not to leave her nothing in case she tried to contest it. Everything, including his house, is now mine. My father's lawyers and mine have advised that the will is structured such that it would be near impossible and very expensive to challenge. I don't want my father's money. I don't need it. And given our relationship, I don't feel right using it. However, he obviously wanted me to have it. So I intended to transfer everything over to my daughter, make her the beneficiary of the trust, and she'll have that in addition to her own trust fund when she's of age. However, I don't want to keep my father's house. I don't live in the same country as my father, and I don't want to deal with the admin of his possessions. I want the legal business done, and to close the book on a very painful chapter, and grieve quietly. The trouble is, Penny lives in the house. Penny doesn't work and was financially dependent on my father, so while the lawyers say she could fight to stay living in the house, she likely can't afford legal counsel. Also, because of her lack of income, she would never be able to maintain the house, which is quite large. So I would then have to keep up the house and grounds while she lived there, which I'm not willing to do, because of both of the cost and because of the continued involvement with my father's life, which I don't want. I've notified her via the lawyers of the intention to sell the house, which has led to vicious and vitriolic messages from her kids calling me evil and heartless. I understand this is inconvenient for them, but I'm not responsible for what my father decided to do, nor am I responsible for the people or the mess he left behind. I'm not doing this to get one over on Penny. I'm just trying to be done with a traumatic part of my life. Am I the jerk? I'd feel terrible in OP's shoes, but I don't think they're the jerk for wanting to be done with this and not want to manage and spend money on those assets. This next story is, am I the jerk for moving in with my dad after he and my mother separated? I'm 18-year-old female. I've got a sibling who's a few months old now. My parents, 37-year-old female and 42-year-old male, separated 9 months ago for 2 months, then got back together and permanently separated 3 months ago. My parents were each other's first relationship, something I've overheard my dad complaining about. A while ago, we went through a tough period. My mother got pregnant and 5 months in miscarried. A month later, it turned out that my dad had been having an affair. My parents tried to work it out, found out the affair partner was pregnant, and that was the end of it. When they separated, my dad wanted to make it work. So when my mother said she was moving into grandma's, 7 hours away, Dad asked if I'd live with him, thinking it would bring Mom home. Mom begged me to go with her. I didn't believe it was best because A, school and friends, and I did believe my parents could work through it. They didn't. Dad's new girlfriend and baby moved in. The new girlfriend's pretty cool actually. So I guess Mom found out because she texted me, "It breaks my heart you've picked sides. You could have visited me or even texted, but you haven't. I love you, but you've behaved selfishly." I texted back asking if she expected me to move away from friends, family, and school. My dad didn't cheat on me, and they could have moved past it because it was only because they were going through a hard time. No response. I think I've been blocked. I didn't text because I haven't been able to pay my phone bill. Am I the jerk? I don't think I am. I think OP's really missing the point of the text, which is, it seems like OP hasn't been reaching out at all. Our next story is, am I the jerk for borrowing my husband's underwear? So I, 28-year-old female, am about 7 to 8 months pregnant, and while I've thankfully not gained a lot of weight, my belly has grown a lot, and I find that most of my underwear is too small and cuts into my sides or the bottom of my belly. After a while, I started getting a rash in the places where it was too tight due to friction, I guess. So one day, I was getting dressed and I was getting frustrated about the rash and the underwear being too small, so I figured I'd try on a pair of my husband's, 29-year-old male, boxers. They're sized large and too big for me, but oh my god, it was the most comfortable thing I've ever tried on in my life. Breezy and loose, and even the places where I had the rash didn't hurt. My husband had already left for work for the day, so I decided to just borrow them. At the end of the day, we both come home, and I tell him that I borrowed his underwear and asked if it was okay to continue borrowing some until the baby comes, less than 2 months left, or at least until the rash is better. He seemed a bit weirded out but said it was okay. Fast forward a few days and we're going to bed, and he flips out at me and asks me why I'm wearing his good bamboo underwear. I'm confused, but he points at the band where it says bamboo. Then he goes on a long rant about how his few pairs of bamboo underwear are the comfiest and best quality, etc, etc. I swear, this is not an ad for bamboo underwear. I apologized and said I just picked the pair off the top, just like I did the other times. But he was upset and said I wasn't allowed to borrow his underwear anymore. I said I wouldn't borrow the ones that said bamboo on them since it bothered him, but he just drew a hard line saying I should go buy bigger underwear for myself and stop stealing his. Now, I'm thinking this is probably more about how he actually doesn't want me to borrow his underwear, and he's using me accidentally taking the wrong pair as an excuse, but I'm not sure. So anyway, Reddit, am I the jerk for thinking my husband should let me borrow his underwear, or am I just entitled? If it's like their favorite pair or whatnot, you can maybe excuse it a little bit, but considering you're pregnant, you're going through some stuff, I think he needs to just deal with it. Our next story is, am I the jerk for wearing my engagement ring when I knew my stepsister was getting engaged? I, 28-year-old female, got engaged at the beginning of December. For Christmas, I was staying with my mom and stepdad, and they were hosting my stepdad's whole family. step-siblings, mother, brothers, cousins, and families for a New Year's party. Prior to this, my stepsister, 29-year-old female, Rachel's now fiancé Matt, informed my parents that he was going to propose and asked if it would be okay to do it at the party, and my parents agreed. For the party, everyone was dressing up, and obviously to me, I was wearing my engagement ring. Everybody already knew I was engaged, but it was the first time they'd seen the ring in person. So at the start of the party, everyone was interested in seeing it. I did notice Matt was being a bit cold with me, but I thought it was nerves. The proposal happened, and it was beautiful. Everyone congratulated Rachel, but it was kind of a 50-50 on people wanting to look at and compliment her ring and mine. A lot of comparisons were made, nothing unkind, and everyone was really happy for Rachel, as was I. The day after, Rachel and Matt blew up at me about wearing my ring to the party. Rachel said I was deliberately trying to draw attention to myself on her special night, and that since I knew beforehand she was getting engaged, I shouldn't have worn my ring, since I don't always wear it anyway. I don't really agree with this, since I've been engaged for weeks and everyone already knew about it. It's not like I stole her thunder, nor did I intend to by wearing my ring. I wore it because I'm engaged, so it's what you do. Matt then accused me of embarrassing by wearing my colossally large ring when I knew Rachel's wouldn't be anywhere near as big, and intentionally showing him up in front of the family. He even went on about the other jewelry I wore. My stepdad called them both stupid for their outburst. My stepbrother says there's no way I could have known that's how they'd feel. It's not like they asked me not to wear it. My mom says while she knows I didn't do it deliberately, she can see where Rachel is coming from, since everyone preferred my ring to hers. She also said that given that my ring is quite unique, I should have considered it would draw attention. Opie's just a victim of circumstance. It wasn't intentional in any way. This next story is, am I the jerk for missing my wife's annual Christmas party because my ex died? My wife and I have been married for 3 years. Ever since we met, I've gone with her to a holiday party hosted by her and her best friend. It's a fairly large party that grows every year. This year, I didn't attend. My wife's still pretty upset with why I didn't. 2 days before the party, I was notified my ex-fiancé had passed. I didn't know the details, but it hit me very hard. To be honest, towards the end of things, we didn't have the best relationship, and I'll spare those details. She was an addict and had relapsed, which heavily influenced the ending of our relationship. I went through a lot of grief leaving her in that state. Maybe it hit me because I feel like I didn't do enough to help her. In any case, I was pretty down and didn't feel like socializing. I told my wife I was going to skip the party. When I was first notified, I told my wife, to which she said, "I'm sorry, are you okay?" I thought she would understand my reasoning, but she didn't. She was quite offended I was bothered enough about my ex that I wouldn't feel up to her party. After the party, she came home and said, "I can't believe you're this upset about some junkie." I was honestly taken back by her cold, callous attitude. My ex was a daughter, a mother, and a sister. She was somebody that was messed up from life. I spent the next several days and into Christmas putting on a fake happy face and tried not thinking about my ex. Over the weekend, I had more calls about the details involving her death, which further upset me. My wife, noticing something was off, asked if I still loved her, my ex, and is that why I'm devastated? She says it's weird how I'm mourning the loss of my ex when I haven't had anything to do with her in years. I explained to my wife that she, my ex, was my first love and I did love her as a person. Last night I told my wife I'll be attending my ex's funeral and I'd like for her to come if she wanted. She became angered by that, saying that she doesn't want to go near a junkie's funeral because the place will be full of addicts, which might be partially true, but I think I should be allowed to pay my last respects regardless. She told me if I end up going, we're going to have problems. I don't know what she meant by that, but she threw in my face how this ruined our holiday and again stated that she can't believe I missed her party because of my ex. She told me I need to seek professional help because it's not normal for a married man to be upset about his ex dying. I began thinking maybe she's right. I don't know why I'm mourning her loss. I began asking myself if I still had feelings for my ex, but in my head I knew things were done. I wouldn't have married my wife if I felt things weren't finished with a previous relationship. I've practically stopped myself from grieving because I guess it shouldn't have mattered to me. I asked my wife if she'd be upset if her ex died. She said that's different because she shares a child with him. That last line is such a crazy red flag. This next story is, would I be the jerk for putting a camera in the kitchen without telling my husband? So some strange things have been happening. My husband's complaining about me forgetting things, like loading the dishwasher and not switching it on, or leaving the stove or oven on after cooking, or not putting things back in the fridge. Things I'm 95% sure I remember to do. I'll switch on the boiler, aka water heater for US readers, for a hot bath, and an hour later it'll be off. My husband says he didn't touch it. Then this morning I came to brush my teeth, and my toothbrush already had toothpaste on it. What the freak? Did I come earlier? Did I not brush my teeth last night? That's just plain weird. Now, I might be in denial, or have paranoia as an exciting extra, or I just read too much Reddit, but it occurs to me this could also be gaslighting in the old-fashioned sense. I have no reason to suspect my husband of doing anything like that, but like affairs, that's what everyone thinks, isn't it? So I'd like to install a camera to reassure myself that it's really me doing these things. Obviously, I can't get permission from my husband without defeating the whole purpose, but I don't want to damage my relationship in the much more likely case that all this has nothing to do with him. I've heard a million things like this before, and everybody in the comments here said it already, but step one, if you're noticing weird occurrences like this happening in your own home, check for possible carbon monoxide poisoning. Makes you loopy, forgetful, but also you have every right to put a camera in your own house. This next story is, am I the jerk for reprimanding my son about kissing his ex's brother? I honestly can't even believe that this is happening. I, 49-year-old female, have a son, 21-year-old male, who used to date his childhood best friend, same age. Honestly, they were such a cute couple, and I was sure they would get married one day, but unfortunately they've broken up before they went to college. I was so heartbroken for them. However, me and her ex-girlfriend still kept being in contact, and I was deep down hoping they'd get back together once they'd finished with their studies, as she still seemed to be in love with him. But all my hopes went crashing down when his ex called to tell me sobbing that she witnessed my son making out with his shirtless brother, around 2 years older. He and my son went to college in the same city. I honestly thought she was joking at first. This couldn't be real. My son used to hate her brother while they were kids, and the feeling was mutual. Not to mention that my son never expressed interest in men before. He's always been attracted exclusively to women. I called my son to talk about this, but he was just mad that his ex outed him to me when it was none of her business. But I asked him how he could do this to her when she really loved him and still does. And he goes and sleeps with her own brother behind her back? He just told me that he doesn't owe her anything anymore as they're broken up, and that he's tired of me trying to pressure him to get back together with her just to be her perfect little couple she always dreamt of being. He said he finally found true love, regardless of how imperfect I or anyone else may think it is. I was shocked by my son's behavior. I never tried to force anyone onto him. I just wanted him to be happy. Also, he and that boy couldn't even tolerate each other when they were kids or teens. How am I supposed to believe that they went from that to true love? I feel like the boy is just manipulating my son's confusion/phase so he can get free sex out of him. But my son didn't want to hear me out and just hung up and then even blocked me. I now can't reach him, and I wonder if I messed up and shouldn't have said all these things about the guy he's currently infatuated with. Am I the jerk? I feel like OP is just too far on the outside of all of this for them to be trying to be so darn involved. Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking my brother to share his daughter's inheritance from our cousin with my stepdaughter? My cousin Laura passed last year, which was devastating for our whole family. There's now some conflict with the inheritance. Laura's will left everything to her husband and future children, but if not, a third would go to her parents and a third to charity. The final third to be divided between 6 nieces and nephews, accessible when they turn 18. Laura was an only child, so the nieces and nephews in question are her cousin's kids. Me and my brother are her only cousins from her mom's side, my aunt. but from her dad's, she has 9. From all of us, there are a total of 7 kids, including my brother's daughter and my stepdaughter. Me and my stepdaughter were hurt when we realized my stepdaughter wasn't a part of this third. Recently, I brought up to my brother that he should share niece's inheritance with stepdaughter. I said it's more fair this way and would lower resentment between the kids later on. My niece is only 5 compared to my stepdaughter who's 16, so it would be more useful for her in the near future. Also, I'm not saying it has to be half and half, but just a portion for stepdaughter. My brother didn't take this well and went off, saying the money is for his daughter and we're being greedy. But I got upset and said no one in this family really cares about stepdaughter and are more focused on blood ties. He's pissed at me, but some other people who know what happened are on my side. Am I the jerk? Our next story is, am I the jerk for having a tent full of toys and books in the living room when my nieces and nephews aren't allowed to use it? My husband and I have 4 kids, Allie 17, Andrew 15, Charlotte 12, and Lucas 9. And we've been fostering Emily, 6, for almost a year. Emily has special needs. She gets overwhelmed easily, and when she gets overwhelmed, she hides. Emily is also very small and a master at getting herself into tight spaces. Under the couch, inside a kitchen cabinet, inside a dollhouse, etc. So when she hides, it can take forever to find her. She'll also lock the door of the room that she's hiding in, then hide to make it that much harder to get to her. We bought her a tent shortly after she moved in with us. We let her pick out everything in the tent, from the mat on the floor to the toys and books inside, and we got her to go to her tent whenever she gets overwhelmed or feels like she has to hide. Nobody is allowed in that tent without Emily's permission. We have the tent in a corner in the living room. It's one of the few places where she can't lock a door, and we can see her in the tent from most places in the house. My family hosted Christmas this year. Before everyone came over, we told Emily to put away whatever toys she didn't want anyone playing with. She put some of her toys in her tent and some in her room and insisted on locking the door. When everyone got here, Emily hid in her tent and started to play with her toys. We explained to the kids that the tent is Emily's special place and that they're not allowed to go inside or use any of the toys inside. The kids were upset, but we had a couple of toys for them. Plus, Lucas was willing to share his toys. My siblings approached me multiple times on Christmas and asked why I put something so tempting as a tent full of toys in front of their kids and then say they're not allowed to use it. I explained that the tent prevents Emily from endangering herself and that it has to be there because it's one of the few places where we can see it from most places in the house. When we got Emily out of the tent, some kids tried to go inside, and I told them that they're not allowed in there even when Emily isn't in the tent. I closed it up and put duct tape on the zipper to prevent the kids from opening it. Some siblings left right after we ate because of the tent, and some stayed but berated me in private for taunting their kids with the tent. My parents agree with my siblings that it was rude and want to host future holidays so Emily won't have the tent. Was I the jerk for keeping the tent in plain sight when there were kids that would want to use it? None of these people understand why the tent is there or what the purpose is. All of these people are so entitled they can't understand that Emily has conditions. Our next story is, am I the jerk for getting mad at my friend for taking a vacation during my birthday? My 2 friends and I, all 38-year-old female, always meet up for our birthdays every year. We exchange presents and do a group activity and a meal. The birthday girl gets treated to everything. My birthday is at the end of this month. I sent a group text to my friends with the restaurant I want to go to and asked if a specific date works for everyone. Sarah said she won't be there, so I asked, what about another weekend? And apparently she's going to be away for a few months. She said to just celebrate without her. I felt pretty offended that she would choose the vacation during my birthday. I feel like it's a slight. Plus, Sarah's been acting weird and talking less to me for months now. I texted her and asked if everything was okay, and I'm a straightforward person. So I told her directly, I feel like you've been avoiding me. Why else would you purposefully go away for my birthday? Sarah immediately got defensive and annoyed. She said I'm a hypocrite because I went away for her birthday weekend last year, and you didn't hear her complain. Plus, I'm always a diva when it comes to our other friends' birthdays, and overall, she needs a break from our friendship because she just doesn't think I've been a good friend. So now I'm not talking to her. She has a lot of animosity towards me for no reason. Am I the jerk for getting upset she's ditching me on my birthday? First of all, I think OP's definitely being entitled, saying you can't go on a vacation when it overlaps with my birthday. Secondly, I feel like there's a lot of context we're missing that may point to OP being a bad friend, I don't know. Am I the jerk for not defending my boyfriend when my brother asked him to leave? My 28-year-old female boyfriend, 27-year-old male, Ryan, likes to help others. He's the type of guy who would give a coworker money for their rent or buy groceries for our neighbor. However, he can take it too far at times. He often tries to help people without asking if they need or want his help. Every year, my brother, 35-year-old male, Paul, and his wife, 33-year-old female, Lily, host a holiday dinner. This year, Ryan attended for the first time. Before we left for their house, I told Ryan that Lily was legally blind and had been her entire life. She knew what she could and could not do. I told Ryan to only help Lily if she asked for help. We arrived early so I could help Paul and Lily cook. While we were cooking, Ryan kept telling Lily things like, "Lily, if you're looking for the salt, it's to your right." Or, "Lily, don't put that there, it's too close to the edge." Lily and Paul told him that while his commentary was somewhat helpful, it was completely unnecessary. Still, Ryan did not stop. However, things became tense when Lily went to go chop vegetables. When she pulled out a knife, Ryan stopped her and asked if he could take over because he didn't want Lily to hurt herself. Lily said she'd be fine, but Ryan insisted she give him the knife. Finally, Paul got annoyed and told Ryan to stop. Ryan did stop, but he kept hovering over Lily while she was chopping. I asked Ryan to sit down until dinner was ready, but Ryan insisted that he just wanted to help. Finally, Lily asked him and I to help set the table and greet people arriving. We did, but things were still tense. I did pull Ryan to the side and reminded him again to only help Lily if she asked for it. He agreed, but I could tell that he was still upset. Everything finally boiled over after dinner. My nieces, 5 and 3, have a game they love to play with their mother. They'll hand Lily something, and Lily would have to guess what it is. Lily would sometimes make a couple of clearly outrageous guesses, like saying an egg is an elephant or a shoe, to make her daughters laugh. After dinner, the eldest handed Lily the salt shaker. When Lily guessed it was a phone, Ryan piped up and said it was a salt shaker. Lily laughed it off and explained the game to Ryan, but I could see she was annoyed. My niece then handed Lily a coin. When Lily guessed incorrectly, Ryan loudly told Lily it was a coin. This was apparently the last straw for Paul. Paul demanded that Ryan leave since he clearly couldn't respect Lily. Ryan insisted that he was trying to be helpful. However, Lily said it was probably best if Ryan and I left. I quickly gathered up our things and managed to convince Ryan to leave. Ryan's currently pissed at me. He said I should have defended him, especially since I knew he was only being helpful. He also insisted that I should have stood up against Paul's overreaction. Ryan's words. I'm now wondering if I should have defended Ryan. Am I the jerk? I don't understand why this guy refuses to mesh with how things are, but they really just don't get it. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving dinner early and causing a scene in front of my wife's family? Let me preface this by saying that I, male 35, love my wife, female 40. I just think she can be a bit inconsiderate at times. My son, 15-year-old male, has what my wife calls a deadpan voice. While I admit he doesn't show much enthusiasm when speaking, I think he has a right to express himself in his own way. My wife, however, insists that he needs to be more enthusiastic and vocal. She often tells him to speak up or say it with feeling, and I can tell that it gets to him. My wife recently started taking a different approach, which I can tell really bothers him. When addressing him, she talks in the most enthusiastic voice she can muster. She'll even go as far as to clap her hands and make facial expressions as she talks to him. How was school today? Tell me all about it. Speak loudly and with enthusiasm. Think kindergarten teacher talking to her students. My son just looks at her like she's crazy, and I can tell he's embarrassed. I've tried to privately talk to my wife about this, but she doesn't seem to get it. She insists that her way is the right way, and that our son needs to learn how to be more outgoing. So fast forward to yesterday, we were celebrating Christmas at my sister-in-law's house, and my son asked me to pass the gravy. My wife, in her usual enthusiastic voice, started saying, "Say it with feeling, honey. Can you ask for the gravy with enthusiasm?" I snapped. It's one thing to do this when it's just the two of us, but doing this in front of our family was too much. I got up, took my son, and took him to the movies, leaving my wife with the other family members. After we got back, my wife pulled me aside and absolutely ripped into me for causing a scene. She said that I was embarrassing her and that I was out of line. I told her that I was tired of her trying to fix our son's personality and that I felt this was a good opportunity to make a point. My wife's family hasn't said anything to me, but I've been getting a lot of judgmental looks from them. I just wanted to stick up for my son, but did I go too far? Am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting coal for Christmas? This year, I went to my fiance's house for Christmas. It was my first time going, as we would typically go to my family's house instead. I got a rather pricey gift for my fiance, Dan, related to his hobbies. I got nice gifts for Dan's parents based off of things I talked about with them before, and I got a small pack of chocolates for each of Dan's other relatives. I didn't know them that well. I wasn't expecting many gifts from Dan's relatives because I didn't know many of them that well, but I was certainly expecting more than I got. At first, I was excited when I saw there was a big pile of gifts for me. However, once I opened the first one, and it was just a piece of coal, everyone laughed. And I just kind of laughed along, thinking it was a gag gift and that the other gifts would be different. But every single one turned out to be coal. All 18 of them. I started to get upset, so I cried and lashed out at Dan, but he calmly explained apparently that this was a long-standing tradition in his family where they gift coal to newcomers who are celebrating Christmas with them for the first time. He explained that it's just easier that way, since all the relatives who might not know the newcomer well don't have to stress over finding a gift. And it's a fun experience for the newcomer as well. I told Dan I couldn't believe I skipped my own family's celebration for this and left. But now Dan and some of his family are blowing up my phone saying I embarrassed him in front of his relatives and that I made it awkward for everyone. So, am I the jerk? I don't think you're the jerk. If I went to a Christmas party and then I got 18 things of coal, it might be funny, but let's be real, you're kind of hoping for some presents. Our next story is, am I the jerk for selling the Nintendo Switch my aunt got me for Christmas? Let me preface this by saying that this is a throwaway account because I'm sure family will recognize me. So here's the situation. I, male 17, recently got a Nintendo Switch for Christmas from my aunt. I was over the moon when I opened it. I've been wanting one for a while, but I couldn't afford it. So fast forward the next day, my aunt hands me a note. I read it and it's a list of rules and regulations that she wants me to follow while playing the Switch. According to her rules, I have to give her daughter, who's also visiting, a certain amount of playtime each day whenever she's around. I have to keep the volume at a certain level. I can't play any games with violence or adult themes, which is basically just anything rated above E10+. And I'm not allowed to let anyone else play it without her permission. There was also one other rule. I had to enable parental controls so she could monitor my activity. To give you some context, I see this aunt maybe twice a year. I understand that she's just trying to look out for me and make sure that I'm not playing inappropriate games, but I felt like she was treating me like a child and that her rules were a bit ridiculous. So I decided to sell the Switch online at a steep discount and use the money to buy a new one without any strings attached. My aunt found out and got pissed, saying I was ungrateful and that I should have thought about her feelings before I decided to do something so selfish. My parents are also mad at me and say I should have just talked to her about it first. Did I do something wrong here? Am I the jerk? Our next story is, am I the jerk for getting up from my chair in the middle of Christmas dinner and shouting, "Shut the freak up about my body," in response to my husband's observation? So, ever since I had my son months ago, my husband started making indirect comments about my body. He never says any hurtful words, but I find his observations, as he calls it, hurtful. For example, he would see me wearing an old top and say, "Oh, that top used to look good on you, but not anymore though." Or when he looks at my waist and says, "Wow, didn't know your waist could get this wide." Basically passive stuff that I tried to ignore till it extended to friends and family. For your information, this went on for months and months and months. We went to Christmas celebration at his family's home. My sister-in-law complimented my floral maxi dress, and my husband said, "I agree, it looks nice on you." Though I have to admit that your waist could get smaller than this. Awkward silence took over. I was absolutely fuming and this was my last straw. So I got up from my chair in the middle of dinner and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Shut the freak up about my body." He was absolutely speechless as his family stared while some others tried to get me to calm down. But the situation got more tense and dinner ended up being cut short and my husband storming off to his friend's place to spend the night upon leaving a very nasty text saying I embarrassed him and made a scene over an observation he made. He called me childish and told me to get therapy for my insecurities instead of verbally abusing him and scaring his family. Now I feel like an absolute idiot jerk and like I ruined Christmas for him and everybody with my oversensitivity. Am I the jerk? I think this would wear away at just about anyone, and I don't think it's an insecurity. This next story is, am I the jerk for getting my fiance's family gifts that were too personal for Christmas when I'm new to them? I'm engaged to Noah, and this was the first Christmas I spent with his family. I met them in the summer after we moved to be near his family now that he's finished with college. We're getting married in February, and we're expecting our first child together in May. Being someone who has no family and seeing how close his family was, I wanted to make sure I showed my appreciation for them with the gifts I gave. So I tried to get something each person would love. One of his sisters loves to read, and so I made a book sleeve for her with little details from all her favorite books. One of his nieces is on the spectrum and has wanted clothes for her stuffy, so I made some clothes for her to put on the stuffy. I bought his mom a jewelry box that she'd admired a couple of times after she mentioned never having a real one. For his dad, I bought him a frame for his office, big enough to hold photos of his whole family on, since he always complained he couldn't find one big enough or nice enough, and had no more room for individual frames. I included photos Noah had provided me in it. I got his other sister her favorite makeup, which she mentioned she couldn't afford to buy lately. Then I got his brother a signed piece of memorabilia from his favorite sports team. For the rest of the nieces and nephews, I bought wishlist items the parents weren't getting. Noah thought that they would love everything. He told me I didn't need to go to the effort I did. I spent weeks tracking everything down and searching for certain items, but he really thought they'd like them. But when Christmas Day happened, I could tell something was off. I spent the whole time worrying that I'd bought them stuff that they didn't like anymore or something. They said nothing. But then, the next day, they asked Noah what the heck I was thinking, and I was like some kind of stalker buying them such personal stuff when I'm almost a stranger to them. The next day, we saw them again, and I apologized for the gifts I gave them and told them I'd be a lot more mindful in the future. I offered to make it up to them. One of his sisters called me a stalker to my face and told me it was no wonder my family didn't want me if I was so creepy to do stuff like that. Noah yelled at her. I apologized again and told them I didn't want to hurt anyone and I would learn from this. They told me I had overstepped. Noah said we were leaving and they owed me an apology. I feel so bad. Noah supporting me and told me I did nothing wrong, but surely there wouldn't be so much offense if that were true. I need to ask, am I the jerk? Also, not sure if this is relevant or not, but I grew up in an unhappy home. My parents were unkind to me and my sister. She was much older and also hated me. I think maybe because of how our parents treated her, but I ended up with nobody who wanted me by the time I was 16, and I was homeless for a good period after that. That's what Noah's sister meant. I told them honestly when they asked. I don't think OP's the jerk. Somebody might feel a little too uncomfortable with how they got some information, but it was all out of love, you could tell. This next story is, am I the jerk for not appealing to the school to get my daughter in a higher education program? So my daughter, 14, is in 8th grade, and the whole school is by the public high school. There's a program that allows 8th graders to go experience the basics of chemistry, biology, med, and engineering classes. The kids would go over to the high school in the morning for a class and miss their elective of the day, so like art class or gym class. It's a pretty good program, but it's only for the top students in middle school, basically the best of the best. They also do it for students who are great at literature or arts, but my daughter falls into the science one. My oldest kids before her both did it, but my middle child didn't get in. So my daughter gets in trouble a lot. Sometimes it's for small things, for not having her stuff for class, but other times it's for more important things. Just this year, she picked the lock to an art classroom to get some coloring tools. I'm talking to a principal at least once or twice a year, not to mention how many times she comes home with a pink slip. It's like a warning. She's the class clown and really bright. No punishment that I've tried made it stop. So today, we got the letters of who will be getting into the program. It'll start next week until she graduates. If you don't get in, the letter always tells you why. Usually it's your grades. Well, we opened it today and it basically said she had the grades to do it, but due to her discipline record, they will not accept her into the program. She was very upset and asked me to try to appeal it. There's a process for the school, but I told her no, that this is the consequence of her actions and that I've warned her they will catch up. She called me a jerk, and my husband's also not happy about what I said. Our next story is, am I the jerk for planning on celebrating my son's birthday on Veterans Day instead of my husband's service? My husband H, 32-year-old male, and I, 29-year-old female, have been married for 3 years. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army and values his military service as a very important part of himself and his history. He served for 8 years before he was honorably discharged. I gave birth to our son M nearly 2 months ago on November 11th. It's a long way away from his next birthday, but we've still been discussing the logistics of how we're going to handle future holidays now that we have a baby. My husband is very particular about those kinds of things, and he really likes having an idea of how things will go a long time in advance. It finally came up that he'd been born on Veterans Day, which my husband obviously knew, but I don't know if it sank in at the time. I told him that I intended to celebrate our son's birthday on November 11th, and we could have our Veterans Day dinner the day after. My husband was angry and said that it's unreasonable to move a whole holiday when the whole US is celebrating on that day, and that we should celebrate M's birthday the day prior or the next day. We still haven't come to an agreement. He thinks I'm a jerk for disrespecting his military service when the baby won't know his birthday is being celebrated a day later. But I think our son's birthday is much more important. Am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to dress casually at my wedding? My 34-year-old female, daughter, 12-year-old female, has been acting uncooperative in the context of the planning process for my wedding. I've been engaged for almost 6 months and the wedding is happening in 8, so this was the moment to start the selection of the bridesmaid dresses. My daughter said she doesn't want to wear a dress like that. I was fine with that. I feel that having a junior bridesmaid is not really a necessity anyway, so she could still be a part of my day from a more flexible role, but then she said she didn't want to wear any kind of dress. I still thought that was valid. Maybe she could have worn a suit or something else. The issue was that she ended up saying she wouldn't wear anything expensive or formal to the wedding because she feels that kind of clothing doesn't represent her individuality, not just from a gender perspective, but also from a cultural and social point of view. She says she will only accept coming if she can wear the following outfit: a Manchester City shirt, a long black pleated skirt, and black leather sandals with 3-centimeter heels. I told her it would be better if she didn't come then, but she says if she isn't at the wedding, she won't recognize our marriage and still consider me to be single. We've been arguing about this a lot, but she doesn't change her mind. My fiancé, 41-year-old male, feels we should let her come to the wedding dress in any way she wants and that it's not a big deal. I feel she's acting crazy and we shouldn't reward her for it. Am I the jerk? This feels like a very interpersonal thing. I'm really not sure which way to lean. This next story is, am I the jerk for saying good job to my son after he scribbled on my husband's home office walls? I've been painting a mural for my unborn baby's nursery, and my son, 3-year-old male, has been watching and helping me do it. He knows it's a gift for his little brother, and he wanted to do the same for his dad, so he went into his home office and scribbled all over the walls, while my mother-in-law was watching him. When we saw what he had done, our son was really excited, but I think my husband was in shock because he was just looking at the scribbles without saying anything. I told my son good job and that it looked really pretty, but he needed to use paper next time instead after he said he made a present for his dad. My husband never said anything in front of our son, but when we were alone, he was upset that I said good job to him because he doesn't think I should be praising him for vandalizing his office. I told him he just wanted to do something nice for him and we could have the office repainted, or I could turn it into a mural if he wanted me to, but he's still upset at me for encouraging his behavior and he keeps locking his office so our son can't go inside again. Am I the jerk? I just think it's a risky thing to encourage a kid to draw on walls regardless. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my cousin how his wife really felt about their cheap wedding? I'm 24-year-old female. My sister, 30-year-old female, is getting married. Her and her fiancé are going all out, no expenses spared, just like she always said she would. It's going to be an extravagant affair with hundreds of guests, and she's thrilled planning it. Our antisocial cousin, 31-year-old male, makes pretty good money as a software engineer, but he has no social awareness and is extremely cheap. He would literally sleep on a dirty mattress on the floor with nothing in his house but a TV and a console if his wife let him. That's what he was doing before they met. He thinks dressing presentably and having a decent home is materialistic. Now, my sister and I happily identify as materialistic, but he means it negatively when he says it. Since my sister started planning her wedding and gushing about it to me and some other people, not him, he always butts in with some smarmy remark about how weddings are stupid, what kind of stupid woman would spend tens of thousands on a wedding, and brags about how he married his wife last year in their backyard and her ring was $200 from a strip mall. And she was ecstatic. Today, my sister was gushing to me and my mom and some female cousins about her bachelorette party. My cousin came in and interrupted to brag that his wife never had a bachelorette party and would never want one because they're a waste of money, and she's so much more practical and less materialistic than most women. I decided to let him know how his wife really feels since she complains to us all the time about him and his cheap habits. I told him what actually happened on their wedding day. Hours before the ceremony, when my sister and I and our cousins were helping his bride get ready at their house, she went in the backyard and saw their cheap, checkered, white and red plastic barbecue tables and burst into tears. She was sobbing about how deeply ashamed she felt that her friends and family from college were going to see their cheapskate $700 wedding and see her walk through her own backyard in a $90 dollar store dress like a middle schooler at prom. She said that she thought her wedding would be special, and if she knew it would be this way, she would have eloped rather than feel humiliated in front of everyone she knew. They had to redo her makeup after she was crying, so she's just as materialistic as normal people are. Why does he think she told people not to take pictures on their wedding day? He was livid, ranting that he spent $700 giving her a nice wedding, and he's not going to waste his money on something so stupid. So how dare I say that about his now wife? He said, no one cares about weddings and materialistic parties. He's like a child with having no concept of money or taste. I informed him the average cost of a wedding is $34,000. He humiliated his wife, and their wedding was the type catty people will gossip about for years. He was so mad, he drove home through the snow. If it's bad enough to upset the wife, and it's cheap, I mean, it is what it is, no matter how much he wants to try to defend it. Our next story is, am I the jerk for throwing my childhood in her face? So background, I, 28-year-old male, have a little sister, 13-year-old female, Josie. I'm sure some of you have a similar scenario with siblings and can relate to the fact that Josie and I have had very different upbringings. I don't think I had a bad childhood, and I know my parents did their absolute best by me. Just the facts are that when Josie was born, they were more mature and prepared, meaning they've been able to provide her with more stability and opportunities than they could have when I was a child. I am absolutely not jealous about this. If anything, I'm happy for Josie that she's getting such a good childhood. Now, the issue, our parents both have quite demanding careers, meaning long hours, so Josie spends a lot of time hanging out with my husband and I at our place. My husband and I are both IT guys in our 20s, and we absolutely live like it. Pertinent here is the way we eat. We don't live off of junk food by any means, but neither of us are gonna say no to pizza, and if we get sent home from any kind of function with leftovers, we're eating leftovers for the next few days, which is exactly the issue. My folks have been back at work after Christmas, so Josie's been at ours a lot. We spent Christmas Day with husband's family this year, and his ma'am sent us home with a frankly boggling amount of leftovers, so that's mostly what we've been eating this week. This includes Josie, who has made absolutely zero complaint on her own part and has in fact seemed pretty happy about it, since mother-in-law is a great cook and the kid just loves turkey. However, when my mom caught wind, she kind of flipped about it. For some reason, one of her big things the past 10 years has been a bit of an anti-leftovers crusade, and she believes that everyone should just eat freshly prepared food every day. Something about depleting nutrients the longer it sits. She got quite mad at the fact that husband and I have been feeding Josie with leftovers and had a bit of a rant about how we're depriving her of proper nutrition. I said we ate leftovers all the time when I was a kid, and I turned out fine. She really went off on me about how I'm so bitter and twisted that Josie's had more stability than me, and it's unfair of me to throw my childhood back in her face and to take it out on Josie as well. She ended up crying and hanging up her phone. I'm honestly mostly confused. Mom keeps texting me that she's sorry she was such an awful mother to me in a way that feels quite passive-aggressive, and Dad called me an ungrateful jerk for saying that to her. Josie doesn't seem to want to pick sides, but the Rents have been sending her out to our aunt instead of my house when they work. So there's that. From an outside standpoint, does it sound like I was the jerk here? If I was, I'll apologize because I didn't mean to be, but I want confirmation if I messed up or not first. I don't think OP was throwing anything in anybody's faces, and I think the parents might feel a little insecure. This next story is, am I the jerk for getting upset when my sister-in-law gave my newborn nephew a gag gift? I just had a baby a few weeks ago, and my sister-in-law came to visit. She brought a gift for the baby, which I thought was really nice. However, when I opened the gift, it was a book called The Baby Owner's Manual with a bunch of jokes and sarcastic comments about parenting. I was really offended and upset by this because I take my role as a parent very seriously. And I don't appreciate being made fun of. When I confronted her about it, she just laughed and said it was a joke and I shouldn't take it so seriously. I told her that I didn't find it funny and that I didn't appreciate her giving my newborn nephew a gag gift. My husband and brother sided with her and said I was overreacting. Am I the jerk for getting upset about this? I think OP's taking this way too personally. Would you guys agree with me on that? Our next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting to spend New Year's Eve with my husband's kids? Here's the situation. My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years. We both have demanding jobs and are usually pretty busy, so we try to make the most of our time together when we're not working. This year, my husband's ex-wife asked if we could have the kids for Christmas. We agreed, thinking it would be a nice way to spend the holiday and give the kids a chance to spend time with their dad and for them to warm up to me. I'm a guy, and his ex-wife has only recently warmed up to him dating me, so this is progress. Well, Christmas was a bit of a mixed bag. The kids were grateful and seemed to enjoy spending time with us, but they also fought a lot and made a mess of my office. It was really stressful trying to keep them from arguing, and they seemed to be constantly bickering with each other over who got what toy and who's eating what food. Now, my husband's ex-wife has asked if we can have the kids again for New Year's Eve. My husband wants to say yes, but I'm really not interested. I feel like we've already put in a lot of effort for Christmas, and I don't want to spend another holiday with the kids, especially if it's going to involve a lot of fighting and stress. I've tried explaining this to my husband, but he just says that it's not fair to the kids and that we should be more understanding. He also thinks because the kids have been so accepting of me, we should have them around for New Year's Eve as well. I feel like I'm being selfish, but I also don't want to spend another holiday with the kids if it's going to be as stressful as Christmas was. Am I the jerk for not wanting to spend New Year's Eve with my husband's kids? If it's your husband's kids, I think you need to put in an effort to spend some time with them, unless they are literally like attacking you. Am I the jerk for throwing away the elf on the shelf and ruining Christmas for my kids after my husband's prank? For context, this year was the first time we would try the elf on the shelf with our kids. We have 3 kids, Lucas, 9-year-old male, Andy, 8-year-old male, and Claire, 5-year-old female, where Lucas and Andy are from our past relationships. However, Miles, my husband, male 37, has accepted Andy as his, and so did I, female 35, with Lucas. Every Christmas is special for Andy, and his birthday is on December 24th. His dad started a tradition where Santa would have consideration with him for being a kid of Christmas, so he feels magical and special. I always try to give him that. Last year I left Santa Claus footsteps, ate a carrot and grass he left for Rudolph, stuff like that. My husband doesn't think it's a good idea I do all that for him, and I'm showing favoritism, so we should shut it down. Because of my ex's decision to create a tradition without considering my other kids' feelings. I disagree since I do consider the three of them, but he asked if we could do something else, like the elf on the shelf. I had no problem with it, but I didn't know how that works. He explained it to me quickly, and since he was the one who offered, I let him do it. We bought the cute elf. My kids named it Bob. Later, my husband explained to them that they should behave and never touch or hold Bob if they don't want it to be naughty. At first, it was cute to see them spy on Bob, try to see it fly each night. Andy was the most excited of all. I found him one night talking with it, asking it if Santa still remembered him. But my husband took seriously the behave or Bob will be naughty part. Lucas was the first victim after he didn't do his chores. The next day, his face was drawn with Sharpie markers. Then Claire, who touched Bob and her favorite onesie, was destroyed. Apparently, Bob had cut some pieces of it while she was sleeping. Miles was having fun, but I could see my kids weren't. I talked to him about how we should lower the pranks. He agreed, but wanted to catch Andy since he hadn't broken any rules. I told him that Bob's supposed to tell Santa instead of being naughty. We argued, but he finally agreed. Fast forward, it's Christmas Eve, and in the afternoon, we had some of Andy's friends to celebrate his birthday, so the kids were playing in the backyard. But my husband looked sus. I decided to look for Bob. It was supposed to be in the kitchen, but it wasn't there. I asked Miles where it was, and he told me, no idea. I started getting paranoid, but Andy asked me if we could cut the cake already. I put my best face on and went for it. The cake was in a box, and when Andy opened the box, he starts crying. I take a look and it's ruined. Bob was covered in all of it, appearing he'd been eating the cake. Half the cake wasn't even there anymore. Miles starts laughing and so did some of the other parents. My blood is boiling and I grab Bob and throw it in the trash. Then I grab Miles. We have a terrible argument. He calls me a jerk for what I did to Bob, that I've ruined it. How are we supposed to keep the magic with our kids if I wasn't supposed to touch Bob? I just gotta say, I don't understand the whole elf on the shelf thing, but this just sounds traumatizing for little kids and weirdly over-punishing. Would you guys agree that every step of what they did here was actually just messed up? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister any of my grandpa's inheritance? I, 32-year-old male, was recently bestowed an inheritance of close to $50,000 by my late grandfather, 91-year-old male. The reason I received the inheritance according to the will is because I was the only person in his life who would make a point of visiting him at his old age home. His wife and friends were all long deceased, and my parents live in a different country than him. I would visit 1 to 2 times a month to check in on him, play cards, bring him on walks, etc. The main reason for these visits was because when I was at the lowest point in my life after getting home from deployment, my grandfather was always there to listen and talk with me. We were both combat veterans, so he understood me on a level other people couldn't. Here's where my problem lies. My grandfather held a lot of extreme viewpoints that I didn't agree with, more specifically against the LGBTQ+ community. I resented my grandpa for these views and called him out whenever he would say something inappropriate. I was very close to ending the visits because of these views, but decided against it for reasons discussed prior. My sister, 28-year-old female, is happily married to a woman, 31-year-old female, and therefore obviously cut off contact with my grandfather. My sister and I have a very good relationship in general, but would frequently fight over my continued relationship with my grandpa. When he passed away and left me the money, I didn't think there would be any argument over it, as my sister wanted nothing to do with him, understandably so. However, when she found out about it, she demanded that she should receive half of the money. I was shocked and basically told her no way, as she wasn't the one who'd been visiting and providing care for him for the last 5 years. My sister was visibly angry, and we've not been on speaking terms since. This has left me wondering whether I'm the jerk, as my sister was a victim of my grandfather's bigotry. However, I don't think the half the money is a reasonable request. I'll accept whatever judgment I receive. Am I the jerk? He could have been an awful person, really intolerable, but it was still his money to do with as he wanted. And whether or not you had valid reasons to cut them off, that doesn't mean that you get to try to justify getting something you would get if you didn't cut them off. Our next story is, am I the jerk for turning down a place as my brother's fiance's bridesmaid and telling her I won't be attending their wedding? My brother is 13 years older than me, and I've known my whole life, all 19 years, that he would have preferred to have remained an only child. We're not close. He's never had time for me, never wanted me in his life or to be in mine. When he moved out, he stayed distant from me. He would speak to our parents, visit them, but it was like I wasn't there. Over the years, I got used to it. One time when I was like 12, our parents asked him if he would let me stay for a weekend because they were attending an adult-only wedding. He said no, but he didn't just say no. He was clear that he would never want that kind of contact with me. They argued back then over it, not sure how bad it got, but they never asked again, and nothing changed between me and him. It always stood out to me that he was almost disgusted to be asked, and by the idea that he would need to spend some time with me. He never showed up to my birthdays, never got me anything for Christmas or my birthday. My parents were bothered, but always told me once we were both grown, our relationship would be more equal and could grow. I think they wanted to believe that more than they actually did. My brother's been with the same woman for like 8 years. I've met her a grand total of 2 times. Now they're engaged and everyone's all excited. His fiancée came over while I was at my parents' house for Christmas and asked me to be her bridesmaid. She brought up how they needed to include me since all of her siblings were bridesmaids and groomsmen. I asked if that was the only reason, and she went silent. Because, she was asking a stranger for the sake of appearances. So I told her it was nice to offer and all, but I couldn't accept, and that I wouldn't be attending the wedding. She freaked out and went crazy about how my lack of attendance will overshadow the day. And sometimes you go for family, even if you're not close to or know the family, because family is important. I ended up having to leave my parents' house because they were also unhappy when they heard that I was planning on not going. They told me he's my brother and I should be at his wedding, even if I'm not a bridesmaid. Am I the jerk? This person pretty much said to your face that you're not even worth being a dirty rug under their feet. Why would you ever concede anything for a person like that? Our next story is, am I the jerk for giving my niece expensive presents but not my nephews? I, 30-year-old female, have 2 siblings, a brother B, 34, and a sister S, 39. Growing up, sister got everything she wanted and was spoiled. My parents would make brother and I share our birthday and Christmas money with her so she didn't feel left out, but she never had to share with us. She was allowed to do multiple dance classes each week, while brother and I had to drop out of sport because our parents couldn't afford it. For Christmas, brother and I would get new unbranded clothes and books, while sister would get mobile phones, MP3 players, PlayStations, designer clothes, and handbags. This is carried on to sister's kids, 16-year-old male and 13-year-old male. For their birthdays and Christmas, my parents will gift them hundreds of dollars of stuff, while mine and brother's kids will get a small toy or two. My mother excuses it as sister is a single parent and struggling financially, whereas my husband's from a wealthy family and B has a wife. Brother and I have asked our parents to give bigger gifts separately away from the other kids to avoid hurt feelings, but they do it anyway. Brother and I weren't going to go to our parents' Christmas, December 24th, this year. My mother asked why, and we said it was because of the gift situation, and also because they only ever talk about sister and her kids. My mother promised it wouldn't happen this year. Brother and I decided to give her a chance and went. Everything was going okay until it came time for gifts. My husband had to work and was going to come later and bring our gifts, but my brother, sister, and parents handed theirs out. My mother disappeared towards the end and came back with special presents for sister's kids. 16-year-old male got a new phone, and 13-year-old male got a new iPad, and they got some other gift cards. My kids didn't really care, but my niece Evelyn, 14, was upset. The 16-year-old male told her to stop being a baby and she should just be grateful she got a gift at all. The 13-year-old male and sister laughed. I was pissed. I texted my husband to stop at the shop and pick up something extra for Evelyn on his way over, thinking an extra gift card. He came in with a new MacBook Pro, iPhone 14, iPad and pencil, PS5, a big Lego kit, and several gift cards worth over $1,000. She was stoked. My nephews were given some designer shoes they've been wanting and $50 cash. They asked what else they were getting. My husband said nothing, and that they should be grateful for the gifts they got. My sister went off, screaming about treating everyone equally and making her kids feel left out, and how they need computers and PS5s as well. My brother said, like how mom has always treated everyone equally, and my mother started crying. She said she gets she was wrong, but this wasn't the time and we ruined Christmas. My husband said we were leaving and invited brother, sister-in-law, and Evelyn to his parents' house the next day for Christmas lunch. They came, and my in-laws gave them an all-expenses-paid trip to Disneyland and spending money. My sister found out and is demanding she gets one for her kids as well. What do you guys think? Too much, or was it just right? This next story is, am I the jerk for not serving a ham on Christmas? I'll start this off by saying I'm a born and raised vegetarian. I've never eaten meat, let alone learned to prepare it. My husband and I are newly married and recently bought our first apartment. It's small, but it's ours and it's across the road from his place of work, which was a bonus since he's often on call. Per his family tradition, the most recently wed couple hosts Christmas dinner. I initially tried to offer it to my sister-in-law as she had wanted to host the year previously, but brother-in-law married 2 months after her before Christmas, so she never got the opportunity. Additionally, we're a vegetarian home, and our one-bedroom apartment isn't ideal for hosting. While my sister-in-law was thrilled, the rest of the family insisted that we had to host. I was told that as long as I got food for everyone that it would be fine. Here's where I might be the jerk. I misunderstood. I thought this meant as long as I had enough food and made sure to accommodate food allergies, that they would be happy. Christmas Day, my husband had work until 4 p.m., so I was left preparing dinner alone. But I still put together a feast, including a plant-based roast. People started coming over and even commented on how delicious everything smelled. Once my husband arrived, he greeted the family and joined me in the kitchen for finishing touches and taking everything to the table. The family began to gather, and a few people commented on how good everything looked until father-in-law asks, "Where's the ham?" My husband explained that I wasn't comfortable making meat, especially ham since undercooked pork can be especially dangerous, and that instead we had a plant-based roast alternative. And father-in-law proceeded to make remarks about how they drove an hour for plants. After, even the people who made positive comments changed their tune, talking about how it was missing something, etc. At one point, mother-in-law said that she wished they had sister-in-law host. My husband snapped and told them to stop disrespecting the meal and myself since I worked hard on it. Mother-in-law argued back that I disrespected them by not respecting their dietary choices, and that she believed she was clear when she told me to prepare food for everyone. My husband told her that if she was going to continue to be disrespectful, that she could leave. Shortly after, everyone left. But my husband's been getting texts since about how my selfishness ruined Christmas. Possibly the last father-in-law would be around for. I feel horrible that he's in the middle of all this. This was my mistake, but at the same time, I was clear we're vegetarian and that I didn't even want to host. I guess I'm looking for an outside perspective. Am I the jerk? I guess I just would have liked to have seen OP put their foot down and say, "I'm not hosting." I know that's easier said than done though with all that pressure. This next story is, am I the jerk for answering the door to my in-laws with oily hair that's been wrapped in plastic wrap? On Christmas Day, my in-laws came around to see my partner, son, and I. We had no idea they were coming around. They had never mentioned it, and we told them that we were wanting our first Christmas as a family to be quiet and just the three of us. We were planning on just hanging around the house, wearing PJs, eating takeout food, playing video games while son napped. As this was the plan, I decided to do a heavy oiling on my hair and wrap it up in plastic wrap to keep the heat in. My partner's cool with me doing heavy oiling. Usually I wear it to bed with my hair wrapped in plastic wrap and my bonnet on top. And he'd encourage that I did a heavy oil during the day on Christmas. In the early afternoon, I went to the door and my in-laws were there. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, and brother-in-law. They had decided that we had already had the morning to laze about and they'd come around so son could open his presents. Son is 7 months old. He has no interest in presents and has no idea what's going on, which is why we were having such a low-key Christmas. They weren't impressed that we weren't dressed, but even less impressed that I had such oily hair. Mother-in-law took me aside in the kitchen and berated me for not taking pride in my appearance and for looking so slobby when I should have expected them to turn up. I told mother-in-law that she should just be glad that we had clothes on as we could have been naked, as we told people we wanted a quiet Christmas. She was offended that I dared to suggest that we could have been naked, especially with son in the house. Partner thought it was funny that I told her we could have been naked and has suggested that the next time, when they turn up unannounced, that we answer the door that way. My in-laws weren't happy that we weren't dressed or expecting them. Yesterday, we both received texts from mother-in-law and brother-in-law having a go for the state we were in. And for me having oily hair that was wrapped in plastic wrap as I looked ridiculous. Mother-in-law expressed her disdain at the naked comment. Partner messaged them back and told them that we're allowed to dress how we like in our own home. And if I want to oil my hair, then I can. He also told me that from now on, we're a nudist home and that if they're going to be prudish about it, then they can arrange a time where they would like to meet us outside of the home. Mother-in-law has been messaging me separately, telling me that I looked slobby and should be ashamed of myself, as my partner shouldn't have to see me in that state. While partner is really supportive of what I do to care for myself, it's got me wondering if this was a jerk move on my part. Am I the jerk for answering the door with my hair heavily oiled? If you want Christmas off and just chill, you have every God-given right. It's so easy to say that OP's not the jerk here. Our next story is, am I the jerk for losing it and telling in-laws to stop calling me mama and trying to erase my identity? I have 2 kids, 2-year-old female and 4-year-old female. I freaking hate how everyone thinks of me of just being a mommy now. I don't get to be my own person, I'm just mommy. Husband doesn't face this. He gets gifts from everyone that has to do with his hobbies. Me? I get a bunch of mommy crap. Tee-hee, mommy needs wine. And like matching outfits. I don't mean like one of those cutesy matching pajama sets that the nurses and horse girls wear in their staged Christmas Insta pics. I mean like people actually think I'm going to go out in public wearing some cutesy matching outfits with my toddlers, as though I think they're mini versions of myself or dolls. From the time we got to the in-laws, it was mama this and mama that. At some point, my sister-in-law said it, and I said, "You know my name is Carmen, right?" She just looked at me funny and said, "Of course, silly." I said, "So why do you keep calling me mama? You aren't going around calling husband papa." Sister-in-law just looked at me like I had 2 heads and was like, okay. This went on all over Christmas. "Here you go, mama. Want another slice, mama?" At that point, I was just like, do you guys mind calling me by my name instead of calling me mama? The same sister-in-law as before did the whole golly gee doe-eyed thing and said, "But you're such a good mama." I said that I'm not just a mom. I gestured to the things that husband got for Christmas from them and said, "Why didn't you guys get him anything that says papa? Everything you gave me is somehow related to me being a mom. Why does he get to be his own person?" Mother-in-law grabbed my hand and squeezed it and said that she was sorry that she made me feel like this. She was just so excited about being a grandma and she never really thought of things like that. I was feeling a little better until sister-in-law 2 and sister-in-law 3 started going after me. One of them did that whole, "Are you okay? Do you need to talk to someone?" You sound so angry, it isn't healthy. Faux concern thing that's meant to shame you for having any emotional response. The other one was angry and saying that, is being a mom somehow beneath you? And do you think you're better than the rest of us? And all that. When we finally left, he asked me why I'd kept it in for so long, and I said that I haven't. No one listened to me before. I've said these things plenty of times. I've always asked them to call me by my name and not some disgusting nickname that boils me down to giving birth. He nodded but said that I'd put a big pallor on the weekend and that I'd need to apologize for the outburst at some point. I said sure. As soon as sister-in-laws apologized to me for dehumanizing me for years. We're at a stalemate. Am I the jerk? Those sister-in-laws were either using weaponized incompetence or are extremely dense and don't get what OP's trying to tell them. This next story is, am I the jerk for offering to write my in-laws a check to pay off what they gave my husband for university? I, female 27, received an inheritance when my grandmother passed away when I was 16. It went into a trust since I wasn't an adult. I didn't need it for school and my parents didn't make me to pay to live with them when I was a student. I met my husband in high school and we went long distance when he was accepted into a great school out of state. He got a lot of financial assistance and his parents helped him, so he didn't have to take out student loans. When we got married, we used some of my inheritance for a down payment on our home. We're not like some people in this sub. Our finances are our finances. We both work and pay for everything together. My in-laws are not well off, but they're not poor. They didn't go into debt to help their son with his education, but they hold it over his head. Every time that we get together, they insist on questioning his life decisions. He loves them and will not tell them to leave him alone. I've spoken to him about it because I can see it hurts him. So together we decided to end this. We saw them for Thanksgiving, and when they started in on him about going back to school to get his MBA instead of just working, he told them to drop it. He said that just because they helped him didn't give them the right to dictate his life. Any decisions he made for his future were for us to make and not them. They acted very insulted and said that they were his parents and they had a right to their opinions. He said he didn't want to hear their opinions about our finances anymore. Well, we just got home from visiting them over Christmas. It was a crap show. They started in on all their children, saying how each one should be making better decisions since they weren't going to be there to fix their problems with money. As we had agreed, I had my checkbook ready. I pulled it out and asked them to please tell me the exact amount they wanted for their son's education. I said that I would pay them and then expect them to never bring it up again. They got very upset. They said it wasn't about the money. It was their children they were looking out for. All his other siblings told me that I was being a jerk for telling my in-laws how to talk to their kids. 2 of them have borrowed money from them, and 1 still lives at home and needs them for school. We don't need them for their money. My in-laws finally agreed that they wouldn't talk about our choices, but when we left, it was still very tense. My husband and I are satisfied with how it turned out, but his family's still mad at us. Are we the jerks? Our next story is, am I the jerk for calling my brother's girlfriend a gold digger after she Googled the cost of our Christmas gifts? My brother James has a girlfriend, Lindsay, who he's been dating for 7 months. He decided to bring her to Christmas at my house, stay over Christmas Eve, and leave the next day after lunch. I'd met Lindsay at drinks before this, and she seemed nice. When they arrived, Lindsay walked in and complimented my decorations, large tree in the foyer, and asked how much they cost. I was a bit surprised by the question, but I just said, more than I'd like, and moved on. Throughout the evening, she asked several questions centered around money. She asked my husband how much he paid for our house, my stepdad how much money he made in his previous job, how much my watch cost. She even Googled one of our art pieces to see how much it sold for, and started talking about how crazy it was that we spent that much, which frankly was very uncomfortable. My stepdad pulled my brother aside and asked if there was a problem, but my brother just said it was normal for her to do that, but he did say that he'd speak to her about it. On Christmas morning, we all gathered around to open presents, and thankfully, Lindsay didn't say anything untoward, so I figured James had spoken to her about her intrusive questions. However, at lunch, we were talking about plans for January, and Lindsay loudly said that she didn't know how we could afford to do anything in January, as she added up the total we had spent on gifts, and then loudly proclaimed the total amount. The whole table went silent, and honestly, I was equal parts shocked and annoyed that someone could be so ignorant. I looked at Lindsay and said, "You are the world's most diligent gold digger. Seriously, would you like to be the family accountant since you're already tracking expenses?" Lindsay stuttered out an apology and tried to explain, but my stepdad just changed the conversation and we moved on. She was mercifully quiet for the rest of dinner. After they left, my brother messaged me saying I'd really upset Lindsay and was out of line with what I said. I argued that he'd said he talked to her and he clearly didn't. Not that someone should have needed guidance to know how crass her comments were. He's saying that I owe both of them an apology, but I think Lindsay's behavior was disgraceful. My parents say Lindsay was wrong, but I probably should have said something in private, or they could have, and I shouldn't have said something in front of everyone. Am I the jerk? I think they needed that call out, and I think they needed that extra responsibility that comes with having that call out in front of everybody they know. That said, our final story of the day is, am I the jerk for taking my girlfriend to Christmas dinner after her hamster died? My girlfriend, 22-year-old female, and I, 25-year-old male, have been together for almost 6 months now. As she lives across the country from her parents and couldn't do the travel this year, she was invited to come to my family Christmas instead. She's met my parents, but it was her first time meeting most of my extended family. A couple of days before Christmas, we woke up to find her pet hamster had died in the night. She was really upset about it. It was a year old, which I think is a pretty normal life for a hamster. She cried and didn't feel like doing anything for the whole day, which was fine. We even had a little funeral for it and buried it in our backyard. Come Christmas morning, my girlfriend was still sad. Doesn't want to wake up and have breakfast together or open presents. She said she couldn't enjoy it as she had bought presents for her hamster and it was making her too sad. I told her I could take her to the store and she could pick out a new hamster as a present to cheer her up. She got extremely upset at the suggestion and started bawling, telling me that I was heartless. It wasn't something she could just replace. I started to get pissed off because at this point it had been 2 full days of this and it felt a little bit performative. I left her alone so I could cool off. At about 1, I went back to check on her and she was just laying in bed on her phone. I told her she needed to start getting ready as we needed to leave the house by 2 for Christmas dinner. I saw she was watching hamster TikToks, and I told her this was only making her more upset, and she needed to get up right now or she was going to make us late and embarrass us. She started shouting at me and said she wasn't coming to Christmas, that I shouldn't expect her to come when her pet had just died, that I was being emotionally unavailable. I said my whole family was expecting to meet her. They had bought gifts for her. She said they'd all understand that she was just too upset to deal with everything. She claimed that she would make a bad impression if she came because she was too miserable. I told her she was being utterly ridiculous. I know she's sad, but my family aren't going to take a hamster dying as a serious reason to miss the biggest holiday of the year. I said she needed to get ready to go and there would be no further discussion. She ended up coming, but we were late. I thought everything went fine. Afterwards, my mother sent me a message saying my girlfriend didn't seem herself and asking was everything all right. My girlfriend saw the message and lost it at me again, saying this was exactly what she was worried about and now my whole family would hate her. I'm really at a loss for what to do at this point. It's been a couple of days now and the fight isn't resolved. I really don't think I was in the wrong, but she's extremely hurt and says I'm being a psychopath. I think OP is just really underestimating how much the hamster meant to OP or how much a hamster could mean to somebody. I mean, OP needs to put themselves in the mindset of how they would feel if this was their dog. I mean, I know it's just a hamster and it's only been a year and it was probably a reasonable lifespan, but they're literally just stomping all over the grief that this person's going through. Am I the jerk for telling my late dad's in-laws that their granddaughter is not my responsibility? I'm 19-year-old male, and my younger sister Kala, 15-year-old female, lives with me. Our dad and his wife died 3 months ago. Mine and Kala's mom died when we were younger. Dad and his wife had been married for 4 years. His wife had a daughter, Lacey, who is now 5. When CPS became involved because both were left orphans, I stepped up to take care of my sister. I was already working full-time since I skipped college, and I just about had what I needed to take care of my sister. They asked me about Lacey, and I told them I just wanted to take my sister. Lacey was placed with her grandparents, my dad's in-laws. They became aware of the fact that Kala came to live with me, and that I've been offered the chance to take their granddaughter and refused. Once they learned this, they asked me why and then pestered me about it for weeks. Finally, they told me that they were older and she could use as much family as possible and that she misses Kala. She wouldn't remember me. I asked Kala if she wanted to see her and she said, not really. So I told them we weren't interested in staying in their granddaughter's life. They told me she's our little sister, that my dad would have wanted for us to stick together. I told them I didn't care what my dad wanted. They said not to punish a child for the sins of my parent. I blocked them and continued on with things until they saw me out on social media via one of their older grandkids and told me that I should be ashamed of myself and their granddaughter deserves to be with her siblings and be raised by me since I'm young, fit, and healthy and could run around after her like they can't and will be around a lot longer than them. I replied once that their granddaughter is not my responsibility and that I wanted them to leave me and my sister alone because we have no reason to be in touch ever again. That wasn't the end, and they called me selfish and cruel a few times via another account, so I had to set my account to private to stop them. Am I the jerk? If you have no attachment to them, you can't be forced into this, especially not such a burden as taking care of another person. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all these people here are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for not sharing some of my sunscreen with my boyfriend? My boyfriend, 24-year-old male, and I, 22-year-old male, went to the beach on 12/25. As is common here, it happened to be a sunny day, so you could get a sunburn if you didn't take some self-care measures. Both my parents are dermatologists, so my siblings and I are very aware of the importance of protecting your skin from sunburn and having a proper skincare routine. My boyfriend, on the other hand, doesn't give a crap about his skin. No matter how much my parents have tried to convince him to wear sunscreen, he has never done it. When we got to the beach, I started putting on my sunscreen and he asked me to share some with him, but I refused to share since it wouldn't make sense to take care of your skin just once because he isn't doing it again. Plus, my sunscreen is the one I wear on a daily basis. It's meant to be personal. He got mad at me. I told him to wear a hoodie so he could minimize sunburns, but he refused. Long story short, he's got sunburns. My boyfriend's skin was so red and felt hot to the touch, and it was painful for him. He called me a jerk for not sharing with him. He says he hasn't forgiven me yet because it hurts and the sunburn hasn't faded. My dad has seen him to get sunburn relief. My dad calls me the jerk because sharing some with him does cost nothing, but my mom says that this is a lesson for my boyfriend since this is his own fault. My mom's gifted him a sunscreen, but he decides not to use it. Are they the jerk for not sharing? I mean, it's not very expensive. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my son's teacher to speak to me, not my girlfriend? This happened a few weeks ago, but the situation was brought up again recently. I, 28-year-old male, have a son, Nathan, 6-year-old male. I'm his sole parent because his mother lost the custody battle. His school was made aware of this when I removed his mother's details from their system, and his current teacher for grade 1 hasn't met my ex. Due to the nature of the custody battle, his teacher doesn't know about my ex for safety reasons, as she's been barred from coming to the school to get him. Basically, she knows that if she ever sees me with a woman, it is definitely not my ex. His school has parent-teacher meetings twice a year, once before the Christmas break and another at the end of the academic year. I've been dating my girlfriend Venus, 24-year-old female, for the past 8 months, and she has an amazing relationship with my son. He likes her a lot, and he asked me if she could come with me to the parent-teacher conference because he wanted her to hear that he's doing well at school. My son used to struggle with English as his mother tongue is Spanish. My Spanish is okay, but Venus is fluent, so she helped him improve his English by tutoring him. At the meeting, I noticed that the teacher was only speaking to Venus. She was making eye contact with her and only directing conversations to her. I found this annoying because, although I know most primary parents are women, the teacher is well aware that I'm Nathan's sole parent. Venus kept redirecting the conversation to me, and I did ask a few questions, but the teacher would speak to me for a few seconds and then go back to speaking to Venus only. Eventually, I said, "I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm Nathan's father and I'd appreciate it if you spoke to me." The teacher seemed taken aback and irritated, but she apologized and spoke to me for the rest of the meeting. I told my brother-in-law, sister's husband, about what happened, and he thinks I overreacted. He said that while he does find it annoying when teachers only speak to my sister at meetings, he understands it's not out of malice, but just a force of habit, since mothers tend to be more involved than fathers. He also said that it was my fault for bringing Venus along to the meeting. He thinks it was a jerk move for me to interrupt the teacher and make her feel like she did something wrong for something that was most likely not malicious. It was brought up again at Christmas because Venus spent it with my family, and my mother asked Venus if she had Nathan's inhaler, and my brother-in-law interrupted and said, "Careful, Mom's name. Mark might freak out now." I'd like to put this situation to rest. Am I the jerk? OP brought Venus along because it was supporting their kid. Even if the teacher needed a reminder, after being reminded they should have talked to the actual parent. And this brother-in-law just seems weirdly petty. This next story is, am I the jerk for not doing the activity my husband picked on vacation, even though he did the one I wanted? My husband and I recently went on a long overdue vacation to a tropical island. We stayed at an all-inclusive resort, but we also wanted to get out and actually explore the island as well. So we decided that each of us would pick an activity to do that would get us off the resort for a day. I picked a hike that would bring us up into the mountainous interior of the island and through some rainforests. My husband's not a big hiker, but he agreed to do it with me. My husband narrowed his choices down to two options: a catamaran trip to go snorkeling and dune buggy riding. I get horrible motion sickness. We had some mild turbulence on our flight to the island, and even with Dramamine I took before we took off, I still got nauseous and lightheaded. I told my husband that both of the ideas he picked are things that I know for a fact would make me motion sick. He told me that it probably wouldn't be that bad, but I told him that I know my body and I know without a doubt that both of those activities would make me sick. I asked him if there were any other activities that he was interested in, but he said that those two were the only ones that piqued his interest. He eventually agreed to go on the hiking trip first, and then we can figure out the activity that he wants to do. While on our hike, we started talking with another couple that was also staying at our resort. They'd been there a couple of times before, and my husband asked if they'd done either of the activities that he wanted to do. They had done both and said that they were both a lot of fun. But the wife did say that the catamaran trip was pretty rough at times, and a couple of people on their trip got seasick. She also said that the dune buggy was fun because you get to drive it yourself, but it's mostly on dirt tracks that can get pretty bumpy. From the way she described it, I knew that if I did either of those things, I would get sick. When we got back from the hike, I told my husband that I don't want to do either of the activities he wants to do, and asked again if he can please pick something else for us to do. He said those were the only two things he liked, and if I don't want to do them, we won't because he doesn't want to go alone. I knew he was upset because he was really excited talking about both the things he wanted to do, and after I told him I wouldn't do them, his demeanor definitely changed. I wouldn't say he was sulking, but he was definitely less animated and not his usual fun self. He pretty much spent the rest of our trip just sitting around the pool doing nothing. I tried to get him to do things with me, like get a massage, but he told me to just go do that myself. When he didn't change his attitude, I finally asked him what was up, and he told me that he went outside of his comfort zone to go on a hike with me, but I wouldn't do the same for him. I told him that hiking doesn't make him sick, so that's a big difference, but he told me I could have at least tried one of them. Even if OP was pretty certain it would make them sick, should they have just given it a try just to see? Our next story is, am I the jerk for not spending this Christmas in the hospital with my daughter? I'm 39-year-old female. My daughter, 16-year-old female, has had a sensitive stomach ever since she was a kid. There are certain foods that'll upset her stomach to the point where she's unable to stop throwing up. We've seen countless doctors, but so far nobody's been able to give us a clear answer. The only advice we keep getting is to identify all the trigger foods and cut them from her diet. We have a pretty good idea of what those foods are: soda and other carbonated drinks, chips, Cheetos, and other similar processed snacks, anything oily or fried, and most sweets. Unfortunately, this is exactly the kind of stuff my daughter loves to eat the most, and as horrible as she feels after she has them, she still refuses to cut them out of her diet, which in turn led to her spending a lot of time in the hospital during the past few years. When she was little, it was easier to keep all these foods away from her because I simply wouldn't buy them. But now that she's older, I can't always be there to check what she eats. She eats the greasy pizza at her school's cafeteria. She trades her lunch with her classmates. She goes out with her friends and stops to eat at a KFC and so on. And it always ends with her in the ER crying and shaking because she can't stop throwing up. This was the case on this Christmas Eve as well, when our whole family gathered at our place. And of course, among the many dishes at our Christmas table were some of her main trigger foods, like chips, soda, chocolate, and sweets. Now mind you, these were far from the only foods available to her. We also had a variety of home-cooked, traditional dishes on the table with ingredients that don't upset her stomach, like vegetables, meat, dairy, etc. All of them delicious and well-seasoned. My daughter herself says she really likes most of these dishes. Despite this, my daughter chose to eat nothing but her trigger foods. I reminded her that they'd make her feel awful, but she said she didn't care, because Christmas is only once a year and she just wants to live a little. Well, this ended up with her violently throwing up in the ER a few hours later. She had to be hospitalized for a few days and only just got out of the hospital a few hours ago. And unlike all the previous times when something like this happened, this time I chose to spend my Christmas relaxing at home with the rest of our family, and not in the hospital by my daughter's side. I kept in touch with her through calls and texts, and told her that if she needed anything, I would ask a family member to bring it to her, but I made it clear that I would not be visiting her during her stay. And, well, my daughter didn't take this too well. She cried every time we talked on the phone, begged me to come over, told me how horrible I was for abandoning her there all alone and so on. Most of our family didn't take my side in this either, and during the past few days, I got called everything from a little extreme to downright cruel and heartless. Am I the jerk, Reddit? This wasn't some freak accident. I mean, this is a well-known thing where you're saying basically don't do it, and not only do they go ahead and do it, they backflip into it. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not calling mother-in-law to apologize after reviewing the security footage? I'm currently planning a wedding with my incredible fiancé Ryan. Ryan's mom, Kate, doesn't approve to say the least. She's been pretty rude to me over the years, and I know she doesn't like me. Ryan has lowered contact a lot due to this, but I do suck it up sometimes because she is his mom. We decided to invite her for a pre-visit as it's the holiday season. We're in the midst of wedding planning right now and having wedding stuff all over the house. The latest addition is this gorgeous sculpture made of white and pink roses of Cinderella's carriage. The wedding is having a slight princess theme, which Kate claims is cheesy. Ryan and I went out to run some errands and left Kate home, as she said she would cook dinner. When I got home, the carriage was ruined and Kate was acting weird. She said it didn't matter what happened because she knows we're going to think the worst of her and she knows her son is never going to defend her. I lost it and began crying while Ryan demanded to know what happened. Kate's boyfriend insisted it was an accident, but Kate said it didn't matter and she would pack her stuff and leave. At this point, I totally thought she did it on purpose and lost it. I screamed at her and, to be honest, said some hurtful things about her divorce and losing her son. Kate packed her stuff and went. Ryan then suggested we check out the security camera, so we did, and she was spinning and fell. She'd been drinking a lot of wine. In the video, she immediately began crying and said we were never going to believe her, who would believe this was an accident after our history, and that she had just ruined her relationship with her son. Her boyfriend literally said, "Who cares about their stupid freaking wedding? You're bleeding." When Ryan saw this, he called her and tried to apologize, left a voicemail. He asked me to do the same as it was truly an accident. I said I wasn't ready to apologize as she made it all about herself and didn't even try to tell me the truth. She was willing to ruin her relationship with her son instead of trying to be honest. And she didn't correct her boyfriend when he said stupid freaking wedding. Ryan thinks I need to apologize and said he's disappointed in me. A couple family members are agreeing and saying Kate is the victim here. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not giving mother-in-law her choice of my clothes when hers got wet on Christmas and causing a bunch of family drama? We hosted Christmas on Sunday and my husband's family is still fighting over this. Mother-in-law is a lot. She does whatever she wants, rules are for other people, not her, and she has never liked me. We just moved into a house with a lake behind it, and mother-in-law found a pair of ice skates at our house. I told her not to go out on the ice, but her husband and my dad both told her that I don't know what I was talking about, and she would be fine. Well, surprise, surprise, she fell through the ice. Thankfully, she wasn't deep at all and could easily get out. Her clothes were soaked and unwearable, so everyone just assumed I'd give her something, which was annoying to be honest. She's never been very nice to me, and my husband has clothes she can wear. I didn't want to give her anything expensive or anything I was attached to. I also didn't want to give her anything at all form-fitting because she's smaller than me and would love to gloat about how they were too big. I offered up a pair of footy pajamas with a bunny tail, warm, meant to be baggy, and I only bought them for Halloween and wouldn't be upset if she lost or ruined them. Mother-in-law refused and demanded I let her go through my drawer. I told her it was the pajamas or she could put her wet clothes back on. At this point, she still refused, and a few other family members began berating me and saying I was extremely cruel. I'm possessive of my clothes, and it was such a personal thing to me. Mother-in-law said she would go home in the wet clothes, which was ridiculous. It was freezing out and she weighs maybe 110 pounds, so she struggles to stay warm anyway. Her husband ended up having a pair of sweats in his car, and her sister gave her a bathrobe she had gotten for Christmas. Mother-in-law refused to speak to me or my husband the rest of the night, and I've been called an evil witch by multiple people. Mother-in-law's mom and sister won't even talk to me. My husband says I was really cruel and he gets that she isn't easy to deal with, but he's ashamed of how I behaved. I'm not gonna lie, if I put a lot of effort in to make sure that my clothes are the way I like, I'm not gonna want some person I don't like to go rifling through it and pick what they want. Our next story is, am I the jerk for returning my husband's Christmas present? This happened before Christmas, but there's still tension in the house and I just need advice. I, 30-year-old female, have been with my husband, 31-year-old male, for 3 years. We both have children to a previous relationship, mine 8-year-old female and his 6-year-old male. My husband started taking away presents from the Christmas tree for the children that he bought them when the kids misbehaved. I didn't really get a say in it since he was the one that bought the presents for the kids. My daughter's been asking me for months to get her a Switch, so I decided to save a bit and buy her one for Christmas. It was sitting under the tree, then suddenly on Christmas Eve I noticed it was gone. I asked my daughter if she touched it, and she said she didn't. So I decided to turn to my husband, and he said that she swore at him while he was trying to get her ready for bed the night before. So he decided to punish her and take away the present and return it to the store. I started seeing red and demanded he hands me the money back since I was the one that bought that present. He refused, so I grabbed his present that I bought him, a brand new PS5 that he knew he was getting, and returned it. Got my money back, and bought my daughter her Switch back. This started a big argument with my husband and I, and with him calling me childish for doing that. He got his family involved and they spammed my phone telling me to get his present back, but I refused. He's still not talking to me. So, am I the jerk? Your kid swears at you, 100% punish them, but don't take away their Christmas presents to do it. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my husband he's a bad dad to one of our kids? Me, female 36, and my husband Will, male 35, have 3 kids, Adam, 9-year-old male, Maddie, a 7-year-old female, and Megan, a 6-year-old female. Will's always been into video games, Star Wars, and anime, etc. It's never been my cup of tea, but I think it's healthy that we have separate hobbies and interests, and we have other stuff in common. When we had Adam, Will was super excited to share his interests with him, and bought him Star Wars themed baby grows and toys, etc. For Adam's first Halloween, Will dressed him up as Darth Vader, and it was super cute. It was the same for the girls. I did tell Will that I had no issue with this while the kids were small, but we had to let them develop their own interests. As it turns out, both Adam and Maddie loved playing computer games with their dad and have similar interests, so there's been no issues. The problem now is that as Megan is getting older, she's showing more interest in princesses and Barbies, etc., and finds her dad and siblings' interests boring. Will seems to have an issue with this and keeps trying to encourage Megan towards more of his interests. At Halloween, he seemed annoyed that Megan wanted to dress as Elsa, as he always took pride in Maddie not dressing up as a princess like a lot of her classmates. This Christmas, it's come to a head as Will spent all of Boxing Day playing the Switch with Adam and Maddie and helping them build Lego while leaving Megan out. Will's offered Megan to play with them, but she wants to play with her new toys and the games that she likes. I played with Megan most of the day, but she asked if she could play her new Barbie game on the Switch for a while with her dad. I told them all to let her have a turn and play the Barbie game with Megan. Adam and Maddie were actually fine and seemed to have fun, but Will kept making fun of the game and telling Megan that other games like Mario Kart were far more fun. I could see Megan losing confidence in wanting to play the game, and she started to say that she didn't want to play anymore. So I pulled Will aside and told him off and said that while he was a great dad to Adam and Maddie, he was being a bad dad to Megan by ignoring her interests. Will was really hurt by being called a bad dad and has been quiet ever since. The kids are now starting to notice that their dad is upset. I'm now wondering if I was too harsh, as he is generally a good dad, and I do know that he loves Megan as much as he loves Adam and Maddie. Honestly, if he's a good dad, then it might be painful, but I think they needed that wake-up call. Hopefully they'll do better and not just poo-poo over all of their interests. Even if they think some Barbie game isn't some game of the year, it's just the playing it with them and enjoying it with them that matters. Our next story is, am I the jerk for shaming my brother for asking me for money? My brother Mike and his wife have 5 boys. One of them is actually our nephew Jesse, who's 8, but my brother and his wife took him in 2 years ago when our other brother passed away. Mike and I got into a huge fight over Jesse. I told him that he and his wife could barely take care of themselves, and I didn't see how they could afford another mouth to feed. I, on the other hand, am single and have enough money to where I could put Jesse in the best private school, play whatever sports he wanted, and he'd live in a really cool house by the beach. We went to court and I had the backing of CPS. I offered to do a joint guardianship of Jesse, but Mike backstabbed me and filed for sole guardianship. He got it because he and his wife already have kids and none of them are screwed up. It did impact my relationship with everyone. I left it in Mike's court with what my role would be since he has custody. There's been next to no contact in a year. Last week, Mike asked me if I could give him a short-term loan because they're drowning financially. There's a medical bill or a car or a house repair bill on top of everything else. I asked him how much he needed to clear everything and start back at zero, and he said $20,000. That is not a lot of money to me, but I shamed him for not thinking about the guardianship through. Now he's paying the piper and asking the brother who he backstabbed for a bailout. He's not the super dad that he pretends to be. Plus, Jesse is bombing in school, and I can only imagine how difficult it must be to get individual detention outside of bath time. Everything else is just family time. I agreed to give him the money on the condition that he and I file for a joint guardianship next year. The goal is for Jesse to live with me. His nasty wife is accusing me of being a bully and a jerk with money. My brother simply thought Jesse would be better off in a house full of kids. After he won guardianship, I expected him to initiate a relationship with me and Jesse since he has custody. That's what I would have done. Absolutely, Jesse would have had a better life with me. He needs individual attention and not group attention. CPS recommends me, not my brother, as guardian. I think the overarching problem here is, what does the kid want? Not once in any of the story did OP ever delve into what the kid wants, what the kid is happy with, just what OP thinks is best. Our next story is, am I the jerk for potentially getting a teacher fired over a joke? My brother, 23, and I, 22-year-old female, have raised our younger siblings together for the past few years. Both our parents have died. The kids' teachers know our situation and are generally pretty good about it, though we still get some comments at the parents' evenings, and correspondence from school is often sent to Mr. and Mrs. our surname. We're used to it and it's usually no big deal. Sometimes it's pretty funny. What I did not find funny was my 14-year-old coming home from school, saying he had a substitute teacher. The teacher works at the same school full-time, but normally doesn't take any of our brother's classes, and as they took the register and saw his surname, the teacher said, "Another flowers in the attic kid. How many more of you are there?" Some of the kids laughed, most apparently didn't really get it, and our brother was embarrassed but also didn't get the reference. A bunch of the kids Googled it in their next break and were laughing about it later on in the day. This teacher's taught our 16-year-old previously for a year, so we had met them multiple times at parents' night. She has since told me that they made comments to her too. When my brother came home and told me what happened and asked me what flowers in the attic is, I was really pissed off. We've had several similar comments before, and I don't find them funny, but it is next level out of order in my opinion to say something like that to a young teenager, let alone in front of classmates. I complained to the school about it the next day. I went in a little strong, but I was pissed. I met with the principal and another senior staff member, waited over an hour for them to be free. I told them at the very least, I don't want any of the kids being taught by that teacher ever again. I think it'll be dealt with after Christmas break, as this was right at the end of their last week. I got the impression that they'll likely be fired. My older brother followed up with an email to back me up and create a record of it. We saw some friends yesterday and told them about the incident. They were horrified, but not at the teacher. They were at me for complaining about it. They said it was a joke, and I may have just cost someone their job. They think I overreacted and that it was pretty funny. They said of course people will make flower in the attic comments because my brother and I are close and affectionate. I don't feel that I should need to say that it would never be anything like that, but to be crystal clear, there is nothing remotely sexual about our relationship. Our 14-year-old has been pretty embarrassed about it ever since. For the first time ever, he asked me not to hug or kiss him when I dropped him off to meet his friends. He's worried about kids bullying him when he goes back to school. I just spoke to 16-year-old. She says she thinks it started after our first parents' night when this teacher met us and saw us interact. Most likely we arrived separately and my brother greeted me with a hug and a kiss on the cheek/forehead. I probably also had my youngest sister on my hip. Scandalous. 16-year-old says that might have given off family vibes. In reality, I was probably stressed as heck because I hate parents' night, and the 16-year-old used to be a terror. Big bro was probably trying and failing to comfort me. A lot of people seem to think the teacher is just a sub. They're a full-time regular teacher at the school. They just subbed for this one class for my 14-year-old. For those that don't know, Flowers in the Attic is a novel. Basically, it's where a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old get locked in some attic together. They grow up, and as they develop a relationship with each other. It's incredibly insensitive of this teacher to say that regardless. And I agree that when somebody's around kids who are going through probably the most developmentally important time of their lives, that somebody like that should not be around them to put them down. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my girlfriend who booked multiple trips without telling me? So last year, January, my girlfriend told me for her New Year's resolutions, she was going to travel. She'd been talking about wanting to for years. She told me about a trip that she had all planned out and was going on by herself. We just finished studies and started full-time jobs, so we both never really had money to travel before. At the time, I was against it because I really wanted us to travel together. So I suggested and insisted for her to not go on the trip and save and use that money for us to travel together instead, since we couldn't afford to do both. She agreed. However, work got pretty hectic for me and I was never actually able to take my vacation days to go on a proper holiday with her. She never expressed any regret or anger about it to me. It just didn't happen. Sucks, but there's always next year, right? Anyway, fast forward to today, and we were talking again about New Year's resolutions. And she dropped the bomb on me that she actually booked multiple weekend trips for this year already, without saying anything about it to me. I got kind of upset with her, and she casually told me I'm always free to come and we'll still make travel plans together also. Like it's no big deal. I told her that's not the point and expressed a lot of hurt and anger about the fact that she booked it without telling me and seemingly didn't care about my opinion at all. Then she in turn blew up on me about last year and the fact that I stopped her from traveling when I knew that was the one thing she really wanted. That before she canceled, she'd asked me again and again if I was sure we'd go, and I promised her we would, which was my freaking intention, and we didn't. So in her disappointment, she decided from then on she wouldn't rely on other people anymore to make her plans happen. Immature in my opinion, because I'm her partner, not just people. I do get her disappointment, but as I reminded her, it wasn't intentional on my part, like completely beyond my control, and she never mentioned being upset or anything about it before now. I would have been happy to apologize or acknowledge her feelings if she came to me about it. She said she didn't mention last year before because she didn't want to make me feel bad and hold it against me, because she knew it was out of my control, decided she was just going to go for it in the future if she wanted something for herself, and that's why she did. So I said, is that how it's going to be from now on then? Like zero communication? Of course, she isn't required to ask my permission to go, but I think it should be talked about. That's how a partnership works. I especially can't stand how she is convinced she did nothing wrong whatsoever, and I'm the total jerk in this situation for blowing up at her the way I am when it's really the other way around. She's reading this with me. Am I the jerk? The problem here is she's reiterating how important this is to her, and I'm guessing she probably feels like if she doesn't just go ahead and book it, it might just never happen, or OP might have a reason to shoot it down every time. Also, hi. I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for saying I can't attend my sister's child-free wedding? My 25, sister 31, let's say her name's Lisa, is getting married later this year. The wedding is child-free. I'm currently pregnant, and at the time of the wedding we'll have a 5-month baby. I asked Lisa if she would come as well, but Lisa said no. I accepted that and told her I won't be able to attend. I don't feel comfortable leaving my young kid with a sitter, and my family would be at the wedding. Lisa's pretty pissed off and said I'm trying to act holier than thou and punishing her for having a child-free wedding. She said she wants me to be there and give a speech as the sister of the bride, but I told her I can't attend if I can't bring my baby. She replied some of her friends have kids and they know a lot of trusted sitters, and she'll give me the numbers, but I've refused. Mom said she could stay home with the baby while I attend a part of the ceremony and then she'll come and I'll go home, but Lisa wants her parents to be there the whole time. I don't know, I'm just looking out for myself and my kid, but I might be a jerk? Lisa's upset that I'm not attending. You're definitely free to have a child-free wedding, but I think if you choose to stay home and watch your kids, you can't really be the jerk for that. Our next story is, am I the jerk for recommending a male midwife? I recently gave birth to my first child. They came a little early and we had to rush to the hospital where we got assigned a midwife. A male midwife, I have to add. He was honestly great. My child was somehow not positioned the right way in my womb to come out, and there was the threat that I would have to get a C-section. But my midwife told me to get into a few positions like on my knees and hands to help my child turn itself, and it worked. He was also very calm the whole time, compassionate, and calmed me down a lot. Meanwhile, he joked with my husband and in between delivered the baby of another woman before I was ready to deliver my child naturally. It was overall a great experience, and I have to thank my midwife a lot. Now, I'm the first in my friend group to deliver my baby, and there's 3 friends who are pregnant as well, but not so far along, all between the 3rd and 7th month with their first child. When we got home from the hospital, we had a little get-together after a few days to celebrate the birth of my baby. At this occasion, I talked a lot about my experience with my friends, who were all very curious about it. I also praised my midwife a lot. The thing is, I never talked about the midwife being male, as there isn't really a distinction between male and female midwives in my language. And I also wasn't paying attention as I was excited and talked about the birth, gushing over my baby in between. I recommended the midwife, as in our country, midwives do their service at hospitals, but often offer their services pre- and post-birth as well. A friend of mine asked for the mailing address. Yesterday, she came over and blew up at me. She made an appointment with my midwife and only realized he's male when she and her husband arrived to the appointment to talk about arrangements regarding her own delivery. After the meeting, her husband was elated, was talking about how much he liked this midwife compared to the other ones they've met. She had to agree on most things he brought up, like availability, price, and how they clicked. Her husband also said it was a huge plus that they knew for me that the midwife was also professional and knew what he did. She said she still didn't want him as her midwife. Her husband was floored and asked her why. She had to admit it was because the midwife is male. He called her sexist afterwards. She then called our friends who are also expecting and they sided with her husband. That's why she blew up at me. Had she known that the midwife was male, she would have ruled him out right away and wouldn't have even have made an appointment. Am I the jerk for recommending a male midwife? So, I don't think OP's the jerk for recommending somebody who was honestly great to them, but I also don't think I can fault them if they're uncomfortable with the idea of a male midwife. There's a lot of intimate scenarios, and I could get why you would just be too uncomfortable. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my roommate to cover up if it's cold? I, 22-year-old female, live with 2 other girls in an apartment. I've lived with one for 3 years. The second girl just moved in over the summer, and this is her first winter with us. Over the past few years, we've consistently kept the heat at 67 to 69 degrees Fahrenheit during winter. This may seem chilly, but it's the most affordable for us, and we and our previous roommates have always been comfortable as long as we dress appropriately. The new roommate tends to dress in shorts, a crop top, and no socks when at home, while we usually wear long pants, socks, and a hoodie or sweater. Recently, we noticed that she was putting the heat up to 75 without telling us, so I gently confronted her and asked her to stop since we can't afford it. She said it was too cold, so I told her that she should wear more when she's home, or she could pay the difference in the higher gas bill. I should note that the temperature was something we talked about when she moved in, and also once it started getting cold. She blew up at me, said I had no right to tell her what to wear or threaten her with a higher bill. I feel I was in the right and so does our other roommate, but I'm curious about the consensus here. This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to cut my daughter's hair? My sister-in-law is getting married at the end of the month. My in-laws are paying for the wedding, and as a result, my mother-in-law thinks she has the right to dictate everything. She tried to pull this when my husband Seb and I got married, but we refused her money as we wanted to do what we wanted. All 3 of my daughters are part of the wedding. Mother-in-law didn't want my eldest 2 to be a part of the wedding as they aren't Seb's children, but sister-in-law wanted them to be a part of the wedding. The girls are 12, 9, and 6. All 3 girls have very long hair. The 12-year-old's hair reaches her knees as she rarely gets her hair cut, while the 9-year-old and 6-year-old have waist-length hair. Mother-in-law hates the fact that they have long hair. She hates long hair and wants to get their hair cut. As she's paying for everything, including the bridesmaid's hair, she wants the girls to have their hair cut to shoulder length, which she still thinks is too long but thinks it's a compromise. Both Seb and I have refused to consent to letting her cut their hair, as it's not something they want. They like having long hair. Mother-in-law is threatening to kick them out of the wedding party if we don't consent to the girls having their hair cut. Sister-in-law is telling the other family members that we're trying to ruin her wedding by refusing. Seb has told mother-in-law and sister-in-law to drop the subject as we won't be consenting to them getting their hair cut. And if they continue, we'll attend as guests. This morning, the 12-year-old told us that mother-in-law had sent her a message about her hair for the wedding. In the message, mother-in-law was trying to convince her to agree to getting her hair cut. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in the wedding party anymore. It was a very aggressively written message, blaming me for this issue and calling me controlling. Mother-in-law told her that if she wanted to be a part of the wedding, then she needs to learn to do as she is told. Seb's now told sister-in-law and mother-in-law that because of this message, we will no longer be attending the wedding. Sister-in-law has taken to social media and is complaining that we're trying to ruin her wedding over a little hair trim. We're going low contact with sister-in-law and mother-in-law to protect the children, as I really do feel this was a step too far for me. Am I the jerk for refusing to cut their hair? Honestly, it's more surprising to see a parent that respects the kids' hair choices as opposed to wanting to control their haircut. If they don't want to, and you as the parent don't want to, you're golden. Also, if she's going to go around being aggressive secretly like that, she doesn't deserve to have messaging access to your children. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling someone they are the worst person I've ever met? I have a group of friends that I've known since high school, and currently we're all back in our hometown due to the holiday and recess on our universities. I've been out with them a few times, and one of my friends, Dave, brought a friend of his from university, Mark. Mark's a good-looking guy and has that arrogance of someone who knows they're good-looking. That's fine and not my problem. Thing is, he's got friendly with us quick enough to tell us things that I'd rather not know. Essentially, from what he said, he takes pleasure in going out and making advances exclusively to women who are in relationships, especially married women. Initially, I thought this was some kind of joke and didn't care much. However, yesterday we went out to a bar to get some drinks and we were having a nice chat and all. That's when Mark saw a woman with a group of friends who seemed to be tearing up a little. I don't know the situation, but it's not unusual for people to cry in bars when they get drunk. Mark got up from our table like a darn tiger stalking prey and zeroed out on the group. Quickly enough, he was seated beside the crying woman talking to her. 30 minutes later, he comes to us saying he's gonna bail with her. Here's the catch. He told us she had a fight with her husband and he wanted to swoop in before it was too late. I was disgusted by that sentence. I'll be honest, I freaking hate cheaters, but I will never take the blame away from the third party if they know as well. Not only that, but I couldn't hold myself and told him flat out he was the worst person I had ever met in my life. Absolutely a parasite. As you can imagine, things escalated and I went home. Both Mark and Dave are angry, calling me names from jerk to worse things. My other friends are divided between supporting me and saying I should have kept my thoughts to myself. I wouldn't change what I did, however. Now I'm considering if I should have just kept my mouth shut like people are saying. Anyways, was I a jerk here? And if so, was I the only one? I actually kind of agree that this is almost predatory in a way. I mean, this guy is just looking for people going through hard times that they can quickly get in bed with and then dip. This next story is, am I the jerk for asking husband to sign a lease and closing down joint account? When my husband, 40, and I, 35, got engaged 2021, we both owned our own homes. I pay a mortgage with PMI. He has his home paid off. His home is a lot smaller, half the price, and not as nice to put it nicely. Hubs stated during our engagement that he would move into my house and he would sell his home and put the remaining principal needed into mine to get rid of the private mortgage insurance. I thought this was very nice and was excited, especially because I've been working overtime and on a super strict budget just to get rid of the PMI by the end of 2023. Well, he moved in right away, but no sale. Over a year later, we're married and his home is sitting there empty. Not for sale or even rent in the meantime. We opened up a joint account, my request, because I wanted to put all of our income together and put both houses in both our names. I've always talked about this, but he's stalled in ever reciprocating any agreement and changes subject. He's refusing to put all of our income together or houses in our names because what if we one day want to get a divorce? He wants to own his home all by himself and won't have a home to go to, and he'll only use the joint account for us. to equally put enough money into it each month to pay the new house bills, mortgage, electric, water, cable, etc. One night, we were casually discussing this with a friend of ours, and he let us know that now my husband can basically own a piece of my home if we were ever to divorce, since we pay for everything through the joint marital account, and since he even helped renovate one thing, an outdoor shower project. So whatever money he put into upgrades in the future and seeing what we pay through joint middle account, we'll give him some percent legal interest according to our friend, and jokingly told him, "Nice move, man." Later, I told my husband it's not fair that he'll now have a legal interest in my home, since we now pay for half of my home's bills, what should by now be both of our houses legally if we had agreed to put both homes on our names through a joint marital account, while also 100% owning his home, and it wasn't fair that he went back on his word of selling his home. I told him until he was ready to put our money together and put both homes in our names and make good on his promise, we should not have a joint account that would only benefit him if something were to happen to us. I closed it down and gave him my banking details to pay rent to me each month and attached a lease that I asked him to sign, so legally his payments are rent, and anything additional is considered a gift. Am I the jerk? This guy had agreed to certain things and now they're clearly having cold feet, and it's more than concerning because it doesn't sound like they're truly believing in everything working out. They'd rather just have the house sit there as a what if just in case. How little faith do you have in the person you married? Our next story is, am I the jerk for going behind my partner's back and telling his mother she needs to back off? I, 28-year-old female, have been with my husband, 25-year-old male, for 3 years. We're currently expecting and due in 4 months. My husband grew up in a single-parent home. His mother was very unwell, mentally, depression, and bipolar, and she has 3 other children, Jen, 14, Eric, 12, and Allie, 10, fake names. My husband was definitely used as a co-parent. He was expected to change nappies, to cook, clean, and take the kids to school even though he was only 11 when Jen was born. And even before Jen, he was in charge of caring for his mother. He did so much for the children that they call him Dad, even though he's not much older than them. My husband started working at 16 to contribute to the household. Thankfully, he did well in school and makes good money now. When Eric was born, his mother got therapy, started meds, but currently, despite not being as unwell, my husband still goes over, after working a night shift, to bring the children to school, do housework, cook, or sometimes we'll have the children spend the week at ours. I've asked my husband to distance himself, be a brother instead, and prioritize our family now. He can still see his siblings, but currently he's exhausted because he's not sleeping properly since he doesn't have the time. He wouldn't. I texted his mother saying how unwell he is. He's forgetting to take insulin, not sleeping after work nights, anxious all the time. She needs to back off. She didn't. Husband found out and is currently staying with them, saying he told me no, that the children need him and I shouldn't have dated him and married him knowing this. Am I the jerk? In all honesty, I don't believe I am. I think the common sentiment I'm seeing here is, why have both of these people allowed this to go on for so long? Why let these kids suffer in a living situation like this? The next story is, am I the jerk for stopping giving the prior owner of our house, uncle, things he left in the house that we now use after he said he didn't want them? So back in June of 2022, a close friend of mine and I bought a house from her uncle. In 2021, her uncle got divorced and he begged us to move in and help him pay the bills or he'd lose his house. We moved in to help with bills and helped him through his divorce as best we could. In early 2022, her uncle met a new woman. 2 months later, they were engaged, and her uncle moved in with his fiancée. At that time, he offered us the house to buy, or pretty much get to packing because he was going to sell to a flipper to get out from under the house and pay off his debts. My friend and I took the deal to buy the house. We bought the house at the price he requested, which was under market value, but it's probably more than he would have gotten from a flipper. Once we decided to buy, we started cleaning. We gave Uncle 3 to 4 months to get moved out and take literally whatever he wanted. After about the 4th month, we bought a dumpster because there was a lot of stuff in the house. We began throwing away all the junk and expired things. The uncle told us multiple rooms he didn't want stuff from because it was all junk, so we would throw stuff away. The uncle left us quite a bit of junk, but the house was basically furnished. Even for 2 to 3 months after we officially owned the house, we let her uncle return and keep taking stuff. One day he came with his wife and kid, grabbed a few things and said, "I'm done taking things, what's left is yours to do with what you wish." At that point, we thought he was done. Well, he kept asking for stuff and we kept giving it up for another month or so. Then we put a stop to it. Her uncle then cried to my friend's grandma and her grandma made us give up more things. But the deal was that the uncle would let us fix a large kitchen appliance under the warranty. When her uncle came to get what he wanted, we'd place the items in our carport for him to get. He then told us that he was going to walk through the house one more time and take whatever he wanted. We refused to let him in. He called the cops and lied and said he left guns in the house in an attempt to have the cops force us to let him in. We told the cop it was a lie and trespassed him from our property. Her uncle is now refusing to talk to us, refused to come to family events if we're there, and says he won't stop unless we give him more things. Are we just supposed to keep giving him things the entire time we own this house? If he sold to the flippers, which was plan B, they would have sold off everything he left and he wouldn't have been able to keep coming and getting stuff like we allowed. My friend's grandma has yelled at her over this and stopped talking to her a few times. It's been a big deal and it's annoying. Neither of us want to keep giving him crap. He's acting this way because her family has given in to him his whole life because he's a boy. So he just thinks we should give him what he wants. Am I the jerk for not continuing to just give him stuff he left and told us he didn't want and we now use? Thanks. 100% you should have cut this guy off a long time ago and put your foot down. When they got the cops involved, that was just a doubling down. You should have definitely stopped there. This next story is, am I the jerk for blaming my daughter for escalating the argument with her dad? Husband John and I are in our 70s, with daughter Lucy and son Adam in their 40s. Lucy has 10 and 6-year-old boys, Adam has a 16-year-old female, Kira, and a 13-year-old male. Some history, Lucy and her dad are very alike and strongly opinionated, though with very different views. He's quite old-fashioned and conservative, she is liberal. From her teens to her 30s, both of them fought a lot, intentionally needled each other, and never let a comment from the other pass. Since then, things did calm down and they were more tolerant of each other. Sometimes he says things and she rolls her eyes but lets it go. Lucy and I do generally get on well. Adam just did whatever he wanted and ignored everyone's opinion and never engaged in arguments. Kira seems to be growing up like her aunt. They're close, by the way. Kira just had her nose pierced. I'm not keen but kept quiet. John said he didn't like it and a few other comments and upset Kira. She argued and said that she was getting tattoos when she was 18. He hates tattoos on women and thinks it'll stop her getting a job and told her so. Adam then basically told his dad to shut up and it ended. Lucy wasn't there, but John told her about the row when we next saw her, gave his opinion and told her Kira was just like her. She doesn't have facial piercings or tattoos. He meant in personality. Lucy said she was pleased Kira was her own person and could stand up for herself and she could do what she wanted with her own body. She also said it was a compliment if he thought they were alike because Kira is great. Then Lucy said she was thinking about getting a tattoo herself. I'm sure she doesn't mean it because she's scared of pain, and why would she at her age? But talk about throwing a hand grenade. They had a big argument, the first like this for years. I ended it by asking them to agree to disagree, and they did stop it, but I know he'll be going on about it all evening when she's gone home. Before she left, I told her I was annoyed she'd escalated the argument, and she could have just compromised and let it go. She was angry and said that I knew that she'd let things go for years and she'd have done that to keep the peace, but she couldn't let his views about Kira go unchallenged. And why wasn't I also defending Kira, and why was I blaming him? I said I blamed both of them, and she made it worse by making up that she was getting a tattoo, and she ominously said, "Making it up? Really?" We parted on bad terms. We've never ever done that before. Usually she brushes things like that off. She knows what he's like. He has strong opinions, but he's not hateful or bigoted and he loves his family. I'm hurt that her principles seem more important than her family relationships. But wondering, Am I the jerk for blaming her for escalating it? Why is this only ever about her principles and never about anybody else's principles? I think very clearly both sides have much differing opinions on what's acceptable, what seems right, and those principles. They're trying to paint Lucy and her principles a villain just because she defended them and they don't agree with them. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister my son doesn't have to attend every party he's invited to? My son is 8 years old. He's had some trouble with a few of the kids in school being mean to him, excluding him, etc. I actually had regular contact with the last 2 teachers because of this. They would run into a problem with other kids being mean, and because he's so quiet and doesn't speak up a lot, they wanted me to know. He does have a friend, and the 2 of them have the sweetest little friendship, but he's not really close to anyone else in his class, and there's kids he's afraid of. In saying that, the school has a rule that all kids in the class must be invited if party invites are handed out inside school. I've never forced him to attend them. This has become a problem with my sister, my niece's best friends in my son's class this year. She's one of the kids who have been far less than kind to him, but this girl also has a tough life per my sister and has her own trouble with kids being mean to her. My sister was angry when the girl's guardian told her that we had let her know that our son would not be there. She told me it was teaching him a bad example by not getting him to go to every party he's invited to. I told her I never would parent him that way. She told me that you should always teach your kids to rise above and show kindness even when it might not be shown to you. I told her that's fine if she wants to do that, but my son's already quiet and reserved and has trouble. I'm not going to destroy any self-worth he has by forcing him to attend parties for kids who are mean to him and go out of their way to do so. I told her the girl in question has not been kind to my son, and while I sympathize with her having a rough life, my son doesn't need to be there for her after everything. She called me a bad parent. I told her that she doesn't get to judge me for making a different decision to her, and I pointed out that our parents never forced us, and that if they had, she would be bitterly resentful today, seeing as she still hates a number of the people from her class. She told me that I was failing as a parent, and she called me a jerk for being cold and not seeing her side. Am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk for pulling my pants down and showing my husband my underwear after he insisted that I was on my period when I wasn't? My husband has a habit of blaming my behavior/reaction on my period. For example, when we argue, he would say, "I won't argue anymore since you tend to act crazy when you're on your period," or even say, "I know you didn't mean to do or say that, but couldn't help it since it's that time of the month for you." It's so irritating, and it prevents me from being allowed to express myself. It happened again last night at the dinner table. We had an argument about him forgetting to fill my car with gas after he used it, and when I expressed my frustration, he said, "We won't talk about this now since you appear to be on your period." I said I was not on my period and that this was just me feeling frustrated with him. He insisted he won't talk about this then, and insisted he won't hear what I had to say since I was on my period since I was being irrational during the argument. I snapped and had enough, so I got up, stood in front of him while he was still eating, and pulled down my pants and showed him my underwear. He made a grossed out face and shouted, "That's nasty, I'm eating my darn dinner, dang it." We've had a full-blown argument, and he said I acted horribly and ruined his appetite by pulling that nasty move. He told me to grow up and stop being spiteful over nothing. He keeps saying that I grossed him out during dinner and made him go to bed hungry. Am I the jerk? Did I overreact? Is this guy putting on a performance here? I mean, first of all, let's put it this way. I would hope and expect that if you're in a relationship where you're husband and wife, and you do what OP did here, your reaction regardless wouldn't be, "Ew, that's nasty, I'm eating dinner." Seeing your partner in underwear is enough to make you go to bed hungry? This dude kinda sounds a little awful and sounds a little performative, willing to give up on his own dinner just to try to prove a point and be right. Am I the jerk for being annoyed at my fiance choosing my ring? Background, I'm a goldsmith and have been for over 10 years. I work part-time for an independent jeweler as a bench jeweler and also have my own business where I do commissions and repairs, etc. My fiance openly admits he knows nothing about jewelry but supports my work. My fiance, 38-year-old male, and I, 36-year-old female, have been together for 5 years. We've discussed marriage at length, and during these conversations, I've said when it comes to engagement rings, because of my job, I know exactly what I want. We also talked about how I want to make it because then I know it's exactly what I want and it's also handcrafted and not a cast mount. This is how most of these rings are made these days, which is fine for most people. It would also be substantially cheaper for me to make it compared to buying one from a jeweler, so I could also have more ring for less money. As this is my literal job, he agreed and said it wasn't traditional but sounded romantic at the same time. On New Year's Eve, he proposed. I of course was delighted and said yes. Then he pulled out a ring. I could tell in the box it wasn't a cheap placeholder ring to wear whilst I made the real thing. It's also exactly what I didn't want. A solitaire round diamond on a cast white gold band. If that's your style, great. I've made enough of them over the years, but it's everything I didn't want. I didn't say anything on the night, obviously, but the next day I sat him down and asked him why he bought it when we'd agreed on me making it. He said it was traditional for the man to get the ring, and I should be happy he got me one. He's also spent 4 times what it would have cost for me to make it. Short version is I told him, whilst I appreciate him wanting to be romantic and getting me a ring, this isn't what I wanted, the cost is disproportionate, and we should look at returning it and having me make another ring. He called me ungrateful and that I should just be glad he got me a ring and that I would learn to like it. If I'm the one wearing it, I need to like it. This is something I tell every person I do a ring commission for, and he knows this. He's agreed to return it, thankfully he can, and let me source the materials and stones to make up the ring, but he's really not happy. So, am I the jerk here? I just hope for OP's sake that it's figured out going forward because they don't sound like they're really respecting any of OP's wishes. What do you guys think? Would you agree? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for kicking out a very vocal child-free flatmate after my wife got pregnant? Basically, my wife and I, 29-year-old male and 24-year-old female, bought our own house a couple of years ago and got 2 flatmates in to help pay the mortgage. 2 bedrooms plus an ensuite for us to use, 1 bedroom each plus a shared bathroom for the 2 flatmates. One flatmate, Alex, pretty much keeps to herself. The other one, Caitlin, 32-year-old female, is quite strongly opinionated and much more social. Caitlin's also child-free and occasionally very vocal about it. As in, it's not constant, but when something child-related comes up, she will interject without fail. Anyway, wife and I were finally successful in conceiving and decided to tell both of our flatmates 3 months ago into the pregnancy. We chose 3 months as we didn't want to announce it to anyone too early in case of a miscarriage, but also wanted to give the flatmates plenty of time to find somewhere else if they, understandably, didn't want to live with a newborn. In the end, both said that they wanted to stay flatting with us, as the location is good and the house is a new build. Most houses in my country are cold and damp turn-of-the-century wooden cottages. Anyway, almost immediately after this, Caitlin begins making snide remarks about our soon-to-be child. Things like, she should get a discount on rent for putting up with a baby, she's not going to get any sleep with a baby in the house, we should have told them we were trying, etc. At first, my wife just brushed these off, though I did have a word with Caitlin that they're not appreciated. Since then, the snide remarks became more frequent and rude. For example, calling us selfish and bringing a child into the world, saying our social lives are going to be over, etc. After a couple of months of this, I decided that I didn't want to put up with this kind of negativity in what will be a very stressful, but also special, time of my life. I consulted with my wife and with her support, have decided to kick Caitlin out of our house. As a flatmate without a formal signed rental agreement, she actually has no tenancy rights in my country, though I still opted to give her a month to find a new place as a sign of good faith. Caitlin's throwing a hissy fit saying I'm being unfair, that since she pays rent, she should have a say in the direction of the household, and that we're being selfish for having a kid without even telling flatmates. Alex is on the fence though, and has expressed that I'm being a bit unfair to Caitlin. Wife, as I said, fully supports me, though she's less annoyed by her behavior than myself if I'm being honest. So yeah, am I the jerk? Considering you own the entire house, No, they don't get a say in the direction of the household. I just think these people are getting a little too comfortable with your property. This next story is, am I the jerk for canceling Christmas on my family after they kept pestering me about my fiance's finances? I, 35-year-old male, met my now fiance, 52-year-old male, in early 2019 before the pandemic really hit on a trip I took to Mexico. We hit it off really quick and he asked me to relocate to his home country before the travel restrictions took effect. I've been living outside the US ever since. I haven't been able to come back to visit until recently. My family consists of my mother, father, 3 siblings and their spouses, and 12 nieces and nephews. My family grew up lower middle class, whereas my fiancé grew up wealthy. My fiancé proposed to me in July, and we decided to visit my family for Christmas since we never physically met them. My fiancé went all in on Christmas gifts for everyone as a celebration of our upcoming nuptials. My family didn't know he had done this. Fast forward to the Sunday before Christmas, we were at my sister's house for our weekly family dinner. From the moment we walked in the door, my family, kids included, started making not so subtle comments about all the nice things they wanted for Christmas. Think designer merchandise or expensive toys. My one sister and brother-in-law were even showing us homes that I knew they'd never be able to afford without help. I finally lost my temper when someone commented how they'd love for Santa to bring them a new Escalade for Christmas since their current car is too small for their family. I shouted that my fiancé isn't their own personal ATM and how rude it was to expect someone they just met to drop so much money on them. I was called a lot of different things, some of the nicer ones being selfish, entitled, and a gold digger. We ended up leaving my sister's house and returned home for the holidays. We either returned or re-gifted everything my fiancé bought for everyone. My family's been blowing up my Messenger and Snap about how they were just joking, and my lack of humor ruined Christmas for the kids. I haven't responded to any of them. My fiancé understands why I was upset, but said that he's used to people acting like that around him. He thinks we should have given everyone the gifts, and tough on them if they didn't appreciate the effort. Am I the jerk? This next story is, would I be the jerk if I refused to let a friend move in due to their other friendships? Academic year 2019 to 2020, whilst I was doing my master's degree, I, 26-year-old female, lived in a flat where I was viciously bullied and gaslit. It put me in an extremely dark place mentally, and I'm still in therapy due to this. It was mostly a group of 3. Jade, 24-year-old female, Aaron, 25-year-old female, and Ben, 28-year-old male. I moved into the flat alongside a close friend, Jane, 25-year-old female. Jane did join in with some of the bullying and did absolutely nothing to stop the rest. They were her friends. She's also somewhat romantically involved with Ben and are a bit codependent. She has never apologized and often ignores my boundary of, I don't want to know about them or have anything to do with them. Jane is on the spectrum, which is why I don't hold it against her as much, as she doesn't fully understand. I've just tried my best to avoid situations where I know she may have also invited my bullies. The few times I've seen them, due to Jane or running into them, they have been foul. From that nasty giggling behind your back stuff and at things you say, to mocking my accent and implying I have an eating disorder, etc. Considering their age, it is pathetic. We all still live in the same city, sadly. There's a housing crisis in the UK right now, and it's especially bad in my city. I'm lucky and live with 2 others, 25-year-old female and 26-year-old female, in a pretty flat in a nice neighborhood for far below market value. The 25-year-old female is moving out, and we're now looking for a replacement and have been flooded with requests, including from Jane. I don't want to live with Jane as my flat is my home and I want to feel safe here, not worried about coming home to find people who made my life heck, sat in my kitchen. However, I am aware that Jane cannot afford a higher rent than this, and her overprotective parents won't allow her to live in a less expensive neighborhood. Meaning, if she doesn't move in with us, she would have to continue living with her parents and commuting. I know living with her parents would be bad for her mental health, as they treat her like a child still. All factors considered, Would I be a jerk if I told Jane she couldn't move in due to her close friendship with people who I feel deeply uncomfortable with and, quite frankly, scared of? I think OP's honestly beating themselves up a little too hard on this decision. I think not wanting those people around, even if your one friend is great, is more than enough reason to not go forward with it. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not watching my nieces and nephews during New Year's dinner? So my husband and I went over to my sister-in-law's for New Year's dinner. There were about 20 people over for dinner, half of whom were children. We are the only couple there that have no children. When it came time for dinner, the smaller children eat first, and then they slowly made their way to the living room to go play so that the adults could eat. When it came down to the adults' turn and everyone went to sit, my husband and I were told that there was not enough room at the table, so to sit in the living room and eat just us two. Asterisk. Ouch, but whatever, this isn't new behavior from them. This brings me to where I'm wondering if I might be in the wrong. When the kids were playing, they got into an argument. It wasn't that big of a deal and I was eating. I figured I'd let it play out to see if it resolved itself. But one of the kids went running to the kitchen to cry to their parent and causing a disruption. Other sister-in-law got up from the kitchen to come and talk to her kid and gave me a stank eye. So, am I the jerk for not stopping an argument between my nieces and nephews in the living room while I was having my dinner that led to the main dinner party being interrupted? They can't even make accommodations for you to sit at the proper table. They expect you to do free daycare too? This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to take in a foster child? My husband, 44-year-old male, and I, 43-year-old female, have 2 kids. Both left for college and one is in law school now, so we're empty nesters. I love it. I get to go wherever, whenever. Right now I'm skiing a lot and we take lots of vacations. I'm planning on retiring in a few years. We invested smartly and now our home's paid off and my kids are getting a full ride in school. We can retire without much worry, although we still will work until the economy's better and our bodies allow us to. Problem is, my husband's now bored and wants to foster a child. I am absolutely against this idea. My cousin did foster a child for 3 years. She's infertile and decided she wanted to foster as a way of having a child in her life. But that child was a complete nightmare and almost made her and her husband divorce over it because it caused so many issues. I know not all foster children are like that, but my cousin is far more compassionate, she's a nurse, than me. And she was crying to me and my sister every day about it, and I don't want to do it. It's hard to tell what a child has gone through, and it's usually nothing good if they need to be fostered. I don't have the energy to deal with it anymore. I raised my son and daughter, and unless they need me, I'm going to finish my last years at work, and then retire, and enjoy my quiet years. My husband constantly badgers me to reconsider, and I've told him I'm not going to. He argues it'll be like having a child again, and I told him I don't want that. I told him to find a volunteer position at a school or go down to the children's wing of his hospital. He's a doctor, if he wants to spend time with children. He also works outside the home while I have a hybrid job, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. So I feel like any foster child will just become my responsibility. But he's constantly complaining that I'm not being compassionate or we could change a child's life for the better. But I know it'll probably change my life for the worse. Still, am I the jerk for refusing to sign up to be a foster? If you foster a child, bless you, but it is understandably such a huge commitment. And honestly, you only get one go around. OP seems like they're the happiest they've ever been. They don't want to mess up that. I don't blame them for not wanting to. This next story is, am I the jerk for not watching my language in front of my niece? I, 40-year-old male, have a brother, 35-year-old male, who has one kid, Angela, 16 years old. Angela has disabilities and is very into drawing and art in general. She's really hard to have a conversation with unless you're talking about pens or markers or Photoshop. But she's pretty cool all things considered, since she related to my lame little brother. Dude is a total buzzkill ever since high school. I would party in college and he'd tell my parents when I came home drunk. So anyways, I'm a bona fide Disney adult. I love everything about it. Not sure why, but I think the parks are really fun, and I live just down the street from them. Angela knows this, and for my birthday in December, she made me a gift. My brother prefaced it as really darn weird and said I needed to pretend to like it. I was fully prepared for a weird fetish art or something based on the unflattering description. I opened it and it was a print of this freaking insane space battle with Buzz Lightyear looking photorealistic fighting Zurg. I do love Toy Story, but I didn't like the Lightyear movie, but whatever. I said, holy crap, this is freaking rad. Holy crap, thanks so much. I gotta put this son of a witch on my wall. I know it was that because Angela has repeated my praise to my brother about a dozen times and once to her friends. Brother's embarrassed and I am too. He called me a jerk for not watching my mouth and embarrassing him. I do agree I should have watched what I said, but I really did love the picture and it's literally sitting in my living room right now. He should at least take partial blame for being rude about his kid's art. I hate to break it to OP or any parent of a 16-year-old, but most 16-year-olds are already pretty openly swearing even if they're not doing it in front of their parents. I almost guarantee you she's heard way worse. Like, probably an astonishingly high amount of times. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to give my friend food? This happened on December 29th. I'm still in school graduating this year, and so I only live off of monthly student loans as I haven't been able to land any jobs yet. This rounds to roughly 700 euros for all my expenses. Rent, groceries, prescriptions, you get the gist. My friend works full-time and makes 4 times as much as I get in student loans. She comes around to visit. We wanted to play some games and just chat. At about 3 in the afternoon, and upon entering my flat, she exclaims, "Ugh, I haven't eaten all day. I'm sure you got some food for me. I'm so hungry." I apologized to her and explained that it's the end of the month. I already spent a lot of money over the holidays, and I could only afford to feed myself for the rest of the month. I didn't have any food to spare. A look into my fridge would have told the story by itself. The look on her face, though, was not what I hoped for. She got really angry with me and called me a cheapskate. After some arguing, she simply left and said she'd just go to the McDonald's then. A bit later, I texted her and apologized again, asking if she would want to go out for a coffee next year. I could cover her then. She was still mad and kept calling me cheap and a bad friend for not letting her have pretty much my last bread. Was I in the wrong for this? All I'm saying is a true friend, when you say that's all I have left, would be looking to get you more bread, not take your last piece. I'd do that for my friends. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting my brothers to move in with me? I, 29-year-old male, have 5 brothers, 31, 25, 15, 12, and 6. Mom wanted a girl and didn't get one. I went to uni, got my degrees, and moved back in with my mom for a year after graduating before moving out when I was 12, which was 7.5 years ago. My older brother lives with my mom and has 2 kids, can't hold a job due to heavy drinking problems, and has a really toxic relationship with the mothers of his 2 children. He uses that as an excuse to continue self-destructive drinking. Younger brother, 25, has a 2-year degree after attending college for 6 years. He kept quitting, and has quit more jobs than I've had, has a severe dependency on smoking pot, and refuses to work full-time. My mother's trying her best to provide, but she's struggling. I help with my younger brothers as I'm able, getting them expensive gifts and video games that they want, so my mom doesn't have to. But it's only a band-aid. She wants to put my older and younger brother out, but doesn't want them to be homeless. My dad tried to help my older brother, but quickly gave up due to his drinking problem. They refused to check into programs, and now my name's coming up in arguments as a way out of my mom's house, and I refuse to let them move in with me. Am I the jerk for not wanting to support them? I feel bad for my mom, but I don't really have the space or mental fortitude for them, nor that she does either. They're upset at me for turning my back on them, but I feel like they shouldn't be anyone's responsibility, let alone mine. This next story is, am I the jerk for kicking my fiancé out while I breastfed our baby and making his mother tell him off? My fiancé and I ended our engagement early on in my pregnancy, but we got back together a week before our baby was born. Our daughter is 3 weeks old, and I don't like breastfeeding in front of people as I'm self-conscious, but I used to let my fiancé stay in the same room. A few days ago, I kicked him out and banned him from being in the same room as me while I fed our daughter because he made a comment about how my you-know-what were a lot bigger now. I don't think he said it to be nasty, and he did say it was just an observation, but it made me feel insecure since I haven't been naked in front of everybody, even him, since my body has changed. So I got upset with him, hence the ban. I told his parents what happened after they assumed I was making him leave the room because I wanted him to keep them company while I fed our daughter. His mother was very angry at him and she told him off. Now he's upset with me and keeps insisting I'm making a big deal out of nothing because it was a compliment since he likes my boobs. Am I the jerk? I think this is a really touchy time for a lot of people. I think this is a situation where they should probably forgive each other, but if he's going to try to dismiss how you felt in that moment, that just sucks. This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to take care of my grandchildren on a trip my son paid for me? I have one son, 30-year-old male, and two grandchildren, 4-year-old and 5-year-old male. I take care of them 2 to 3 times a week for 3 to 4 hours a day. I don't mind taking care of them, but it's exhausting. At the beginning of November, my son invited me to go with him, his wife, children, and in-laws to travel from the 15th to the 22nd of December. I asked how much this trip was, and it wasn't cheap, so I said I didn't want it, because it wasn't something I wanted to spend at the moment. He offered to pay as a gift, and I decided to accept on the condition that I would not babysit my grandchildren at any time and this would be my vacation. He agreed. In a few spaced conversations, I asked why they didn't leave the children with my ex-husband during this period, as it is a very adult and romantic city. They said they wanted a family trip. By the way, my ex-husband loves his grandkids and they spent almost 3 weeks at his house once. He didn't go on the trip for other reasons. On the trip, I wasn't very proactive in taking care of my grandchildren, honestly. Apart from a few well-spaced moments, my son, wife, and his in-laws took care of the kids. I obviously spent time with them. This trip, we basically spent the morning and afternoon together. At night, we were free to do whatever we wanted. I took the opportunity to visit some restaurants and hopping, alone. My son and wife took turns with his in-laws at night with my grandchildren because most places weren't family-friendly. The 6th day, I decided to stay at the hotel, drink some wine, and read a book. My son found out I was staying at the hotel and asked if I could look after them. I declined, saying I had other plans in my room. He started to complain that everyone was helping and taking turns except me, who didn't help the whole trip he paid for. This really pissed me off. I reminded him that it was his choice to bring 2 children in a completely non-family friendly city, and that I said before even accepting his gift that I would not take care of the children, because I just want to relax. We ended up arguing and he said, among other things, that I could be a little more grateful for his gift and make this concession for 3 hours for them and the in-laws to have a free night, but that I'm deciding to be a jerk. I stuck to it, and in doubt he wouldn't respect this, I ducked into the pool area the whole night. He tried to show up in my room with the kids and just drop them. Things have been tense ever since, as he said I was a jerk the whole trip. Gosh, how dare you make a condition and stick to that condition the entire trip? Don't you know they're a parent? Don't you know how hard that is, Mom? Our next story is, am I the jerk for favoring my stepson? My husband is significantly older than me, 10 plus years. When we married 10 years ago, he had 3 teenage children. Tom, 16-year-old male, Jane, 15-year-old female, and Andy, 13-year-old non-binary. The children's mother had died when Andy was born, and I made it clear I was not interested in being a mother figure to them. I was only 25 myself. But over time, we've each formed our own relationship. Very early on, it was clear Tom and I just got along well. We both like antiques, shopping, and dirty jokes. I was the first person he came out to at 19. I adore his partner, who I hope will be his husband if I'm being honest. We are close. Jane and I have a good relationship, but not as close as Tom and I. She and I probably have a middle child understanding with each other. Andy has always been harder. They caused a lot of trouble as a teen and have continued to struggle. Also, if I'm being frank, Andy had developed some pretty insufferable political opinions and loves to lecture people. Sometimes I want to have dinner, not have Foucault crib noted to me, which leads to Christmas. I bought each of the kids a gift, as I have done for the past decade. Tom got an antique vase I'd seen him admire in a store when we were out shopping. Jane got a Cuisinart she'd asked for. I got Andy a $20 gift card to a local store I know they like. Andy looked visibly disappointed. After the kids had left, husband got mad at me and said Andy can tell I don't like them and I need to stop favoring Tom. I get mothers shouldn't have favorites, but I'm not their mother and we're friends at best. And yeah, I have a favorite and sometimes it shows. So Reddit, am I the jerk? I get having favorites, but if you're gonna make it that pointed, where you get them really nice personal gifts or expensive gifts, and then go to the third one and say, here you go, sweaty, and hand them a $20 gift card to someplace, it seems almost a little intentionally targeted, like you're trying to send a message. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to tell my husband the gender of our baby after he skipped going to the doctor's appointment with me? My husband and I are expecting. This is our first baby and we're excited. Thing is, he barely attends any doctor appointments with me and his excuses aren't even valid. He's willing to miss the doctor's appointment over soccer or a drink or board games with friends. His response is always, I'm not the one carrying the baby. Why do I have to go see the doctor with you? Last week was my final straw. He was supposed to come with me for the baby's gender reveal appointment, but he chose not to come last minute because his friend invited him to fish and chips meal. I was pretty livid but didn't make a fuss about it. Mom went with me instead. He texted me asking me to tell him the results, boy or girl, but I refused to tell him. He kept spam calling me, but I hung up each time. He came home fuming, demanding I tell him the results, but I refused and bluntly told him since he refused to attend the appointment, then he gets no results till after the baby's born, and said I was willing to die on this hill. He went off, calling me spiteful and immature for doing this and punishing him. He said he's the father and has the right to know. He then called me dramatic since I wasn't alone and mom was with me. I said he gets no results, period. He's been fuming about it and told his family, and they're now pressuring me to stop playing mind games with him and tell him, but I declined. Am I the jerk? I wish OP the best of luck as they continue to raise their kid by themselves because this dude sounds like he's going to take every opportunity to pass any of that parenting off on OP. Am I the jerk for walking away from my wife and kids at Costco? So today I, wife, and the kids went to Costco for some shopping. While we were strolling through the aisles, we got to the refrigerator section and my wife picked a pack of yogurt drinks. My little one, almost 2, saw the yogurt drinks and raised her hand, as in asking for some, to which my wife said that she was going to take one out and give it to her. My son, 4 years old, saw this and asked for one too, which my wife proceeded to do. The second I saw her do this, I told her to stop and not give them the drinks as we hadn't paid for them. She said no, it was okay as we were going to pay for them anyway, and I replied that if she does it, I am gonna leave her with the kids there as it was really embarrassing in case someone called us out. She didn't listen to me and did what she said she would, so I walked away from her, leaving her with the kids and started looking at other things. Moments later, she called me saying that I should go back as the kids had finished their drinks. I was mad, but I know how my kids are, so I ended up going back. When I went back, we apologized to each other and kept going with our day. Now we're home and she's acting rude to me and just told me that she thinks I don't care about her at all and I treat her like crap, all on the basis of what happened earlier. So am I the jerk for doing what I did, even though I gave her a fair warning? Couple reasons why I think I was right in doing what I did. 1, as far as I know, it's illegal to open merchandise without paying for it, even though you're still at the store. It's also trashy and embarrassing to do that if people notice you do it. 2, my kids are not easygoing, as in they don't take no easily, but I've been pretty good at teaching them their limits. Giving them stuff this easily only makes the problem worse. However, my kids do understand that you can't open anything in the store until you're back home or in our car. I don't want them to think it's normal to just open and use store merchandise. As long as you're legitimately going to pay for it, and you're not going to make a huge mess on the store floor, why should you be ashamed? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for not locking my bedroom door? I, 33-year-old female, live in what used to be my grandmother's house. I was her full-time carer for 2 years before she passed, and I inherited the house. I haven't moved into the master bedroom. Honestly, I don't even open the door. My half-brother Sam, 21, wanted to bring his partner Cody, 25-year-old male, to meet the family. Mom asked if I could host because Cody's vegan and Mom knows 10 meals. I said yes, and tonight was the dinner. I made a lentil soup, mushroom carbonara, and the thing I worked hardest on, a vegan sticky toffee pudding with vegan ice cream. I love to cook, in case you couldn't tell. Everything seemed to go well. It was a little awkward at first, but by the time we got to the carbonara, I thought everything was going well. After that, I went back to the kitchen to plate up the pudding and ice cream, leaving everyone in the living room with coffee. I came out with a dessert for everyone, and no one was there. I heard something and followed it to find Cody beside himself on my bed, calling me horrible things. I have a small glass table in my room, and inside it I had some things. Unfortunately, they included a dried 6-inch seahorse, a starfish, a sand dollar, and a shark's jawbone along with some other things. Cody had tried to break it open, but my mom caught him and called Sam. It devolved and Sam called me a creepy witch for having them in the house as he took Cody home. Mom said I should have at least locked my bedroom door because everyone knows people go through houses during dinner parties. She and stepdad left to be at home for when Sam gets back, but as he was leaving, stepdad asked, "What did you expect when you asked someone like that to host?" Am I the jerk for not locking my bedroom door? I didn't expect anyone to go upstairs. All I'm saying is, when you invite somebody over, you're doing so probably under the assumption that they're not going to go snooping around where you didn't welcome them to. This next story is, am I the jerk for not thanking my wife for my bed and breakfast birthday present? Wife, 41-year-old female, and I, 40-year-old male, have 2 teenage kids together. Both work full-time, comparable hours, but I cook all the meals while we otherwise split the housework 50-50. Wife doesn't cook because she doesn't know how to, but every time I offer to teach her or ask for help, she'll come up with excuses like being tired. Been this way coming on 20 years. Today I turned 40 and my wife's present was making me breakfast in bed. This consisted of toast, 2 eggs and a strip of bacon, also an instant coffee. We have an actual coffee machine that does cappuccinos, etc., but wife doesn't know how to use it. I don't normally think of presents as transactional, but I was really disappointed, as it's something I do for her literally every day of the year. And for my birthday, she just put in minimal effort to make a standard breakfast. Turns out she had our daughter cook the bacon and eggs for her as well anyway. She only actually made the coffee. Told my wife it was a little disappointing, as cooking for me occasionally is something she should be doing normally anyway. She took this really badly and isn't speaking to me at the moment, and she said she put a lot of thought into it since I'm always asking her to learn to cook. For comparison, on her last birthday, I surprised her by flying her sisters down to spend it with her, alongside a nice pair of earrings. Maybe I'm being a bit selfish or childish for complaining about a present. Am I the jerk? Our next story is, am I the jerk for banning my sister's boyfriend from our apartment? Please help, because I really feel like I'm being made out to be crazy. I, 27-year-old female, share an apartment with my sister, 19-year-old female. Let me preface this by saying that I'm the only one on our lease. Since she isn't old enough, our complex says you have to be 21, so right now she pays less than half the rent in exchange to stay here, which is around $400 out of $955. She doesn't pay for anything else, bills, utilities, etc. 2 weeks ago, after having an argument with our mother and I over not helping pay for other utilities, cleaning up messes, generally not being a great roommate, my sister left the apartment and went to visit her boyfriend, 19-year-old male, at the bakery where he works. He and I have had disagreements in the past about him smoking, not tobacco, in our apartment, which puts me at a risk for eviction, and over him leaving messes and trash around when he comes to visit, where he normally stays for a few days at a time. After this disagreement, however, I received a text from him after midnight telling me that I needed to call him to talk. I didn't answer because I was upset myself and I'm not one to be confrontational, especially when I'm not calm. He arrived at my apartment with my sister. It was after 1 a.m. at this point. I was in bed, lights off, in pajamas, when he began pounding on my door. Before I even answered, he opened it and was in my room, yelling at me about letting my mom come between me and my sister. I was already shaken at that point. My door doesn't lock, so I was already very caught off guard, and I was scared. I told him that it was something between my mom, my sister, and myself, not him. He stormed into my room and tossed his key that my sister had given to him onto my nightstand, told me to have a nice freaking life, and slammed my door shut again before I could even answer. I told my sister I didn't feel comfortable with him coming to our apartment anymore. It's been a week, and she and I just had our first fight about it tonight. I just held my ground and said I didn't want him over. She says I'm irrational and being selfish, and that I'm destroying her mental health by banning him. But I really don't feel comfortable, and technically and legally it is my apartment. Am I the jerk? Did OP know that this guy got a copy of the key? I mean, that alone would make you want to keep them out. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter that she doesn't really have PTSD? I, 42-year-old female, have 3 children, 14-year-old female, 8-year-old male, and 2-year-old female. Last year, our house flooded during a storm, and it's still taking time to get everything repaired. My children and I are staying with my brother until we can return back home. It's been an adjustment for everybody, but we're managing. My younger daughter has her moments, but she was really too little to remember any of the actual flooding. My son was pretty anxious in storms for a few months, but has gotten over it as he realizes that what happened to us is relatively rare for the area. Initially, my older daughter was doing okay, but now that it's around the year anniversary, she's gotten a lot more worried. The thing about my daughter is that, unlike her siblings, she's been afraid of thunderstorms her entire life. And it was actually kind of odd how not afraid she's been for this past year. I thought she had just aged out of the fear. Now that it's returned, I figured that last year must have been a fluke and she's gotten back to being her normal self. So when my daughter came to me a few nights ago stating that she thinks she has PTSD, I started laughing. I wasn't laughing at her, I was laughing because it's absurd. None of us have PTSD, and I can say as her mother that her current fear levels are not a product of any PTSD, but simply a return to her pre-flooding fear of thunderstorms. However, ever since our conversation, my daughter's refused to talk to me. I confronted her about her rudeness and told her that, though I understand that she's afraid of thunderstorms, and has been forever, she doesn't really have PTSD. She'll age out of her fear in time, and I think she can get over most of it when we get back home. She told me that I'm mean and don't listen to her. I don't think I'm terribly mean, but my brother told me that I could have been nicer, so I figured that I would ask. Am I the jerk? All I know is if I was in the kid's situation, I would want my feelings to be validated and discussed in a thoughtful way, not downplayed and told that I'll just grow out of it. Even if that is what happens, nurture your child's feelings. Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking my sister to immediately pick up her son as my daughter's too tired to play with him and needs some rest? I, 29-year-old female, have a daughter who is 4, Anna. Her father is not in the picture, and I'm raising her with the help of my grandma. To be clear, me and Anna live in her house, and I help her around the house and with bills, and she looks after Anna while I'm working. About a month ago, Anna had a very complicated operation. This is for a condition she had since she was born, and the operation essentially saved her life. However, I had to borrow money from family, including my sister, to make sure the operation would go ahead, and I'm paying it back slowly. The operation has a long recovery period. The doctor said it might take up to 6 months for her to be back to normal. Due to this, Anna gets tired really quickly, especially after active playtime. Because she's recovering, she can take naps and sleep as much as she needs. I've also made sure to break the main meals into 6 to 8 smaller meals so it's easier to eat, as she recently found eating boring because it takes too long. She has friends visiting her, and the rule with them and their parents is that if Anna gets tired, they move into less active activities like watching a cartoon or reading, which they can understand and have been complying with without issues. Thursday, my sister came around with her son and asked me to look after him for a bit as something came up at work. She knows about Anna recovering and needing rest and assured me it was for an hour or two. My nephew Kyle is 5, and as soon as he got into the house, he wanted to play with Anna. My grandma wasn't home as she had to visit a friend, so I was looking after them. After about an hour, Anna mentioned that she was tired and wanted to watch some cartoons on Disney, but Kyle still wanted to play and didn't want to watch girly cartoons. He wanted to keep playing. I've told Anna that she can go to her room and watch it there and I'll look after Kyle, but he didn't want to let go of Anna and kept insisting she must play with him since his mommy paid us. That didn't sit well with me and he was throwing a tantrum, refusing to accept that Anna needs rest. So I called my sister and told her to pick Kyle up immediately. My sister did show up, but she wasn't happy and called me a jerk since she was in an important meeting. And I could have sucked it up since she loaned me money for Anna's operation, so it's the least I could have done. After this, I've asked her to leave. Later that day, I received a call from my mom saying I was a jerk too and shouldn't have asked my sister to pick up Kyle since it's just her looking after him, as Kyle's dad's in the military and currently away. You gotta love a little multi-general manipulation over money, right? Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to help my parents with their mortgage, forcing them to lose their home, even though I can easily pay it off? As children, my parents would buy my 2 brothers whatever they requested regardless of how expensive it was, allowed them to go on trips with them, and threw them over-the-top birthday parties, while I didn't receive any. For example, my brothers got to go to Disney for their birthdays while I stayed with my grandparents. Fortunately, my aunt and grandma took me to Disney a few months later. After being called out, they said they couldn't afford the trip for 5. As we got a little older, my parents had us working in their business after school and weekends. They gave both of my brothers allowances for helping out, while I didn't receive anything and was expected to do more. I wish it was just financial abuse though. My parents always said very hurtful things. They would make comments when I entered the room, and I honestly still don't know what I did wrong. When my brother graduated high school, they gave him an all-inclusive trip around Europe for the summer. When I graduated the next year, I didn't even get a party from them. I think the worst of it was being that they paid for both of my brother's higher education, but told me to figure it out because they can't afford to pay for 3 college degrees. At 18, I moved in with my grandparents full-time and decided not to go to college because I didn't want to get into debt or put that burden on my grandparents, who offered to pay for some. I did, however, take them up on their offer to financially support me until I had a job. My grandma gifted me about $5,000 after moving in with her to help me start an online business I told her about. Long story short, my online shop blew up and made well over 6 figures my first year. Within 5 years, 2 online shops and a lot of investing in real estate and stocks, I now make way more money than my parents ever made combined. During the pandemic, my parents had to shut down their restaurant and are still struggling to make ends meet. They're also unable to pay for their mortgage and afraid they'll go homeless if I don't support them. They also have a lot of medical bills after my father got into an accident and needed surgery for his knee. I, being so grateful for everything my grandparents and aunt have done for me, decided to get my grandparents their dream home and paid off my aunt's debts for medical school. After realizing I can also easily afford to pay off their debts and mortgage, my parents have been begging me, literal tears, to save their home, but I refused. They told me I'm a jerk and I deserved my upbringing, and that I shouldn't be punishing my siblings and forcing them out of their homes for the actions of my parents. I'm not punishing my siblings though. I'll be more than happy to support them, especially my baby sister, if she comes and stays with me or my grandparents. Am I the jerk for watching them become homeless? This next story is, am I the jerk for saying something about my ex-wife's boyfriend buying flowers for my 9-year-old daughter? My ex-wife asked me to watch the kids at her house this weekend. We have a good relationship, so I don't mind. While there, I noticed there were 2 vases of flowers on the counter. I commented to my 9-year-old daughter how nice it was of her mom's boyfriend to buy flowers for her mom. She responded that one of the 2 vases was actually for her. Both weren't just for her mom. She quickly clarified to me that one of the vases was not from her mom's boyfriend, but from her mom's friend's friend. As this sounded suspicious, I called her out on the lie. and she admitted that one of the vases of flowers actually came from her mom's boyfriend for her. I've heard too many horror stories of how men will groom young girls. I sent a message to her mom asking why he gave flowers to her. I told her I thought it was weird and inappropriate. She responded that I'm being jealous. Am I the jerk? I think it's totally appropriate for a boyfriend of a mom to give the mom's child some flowers. It's good to be precautious about anybody being around your kid, but flowers alone don't mean you can make the jump to that. Our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving a pregnant woman outside? Okay, so I, 19-year-old female, am autistic, and my sister, 30-year-old female, asked me if I could come over to her house to babysit her while she and her husband went out on a much-needed date night. I had some reservations about this, and I've never supervised the kids alone. She usually brought them to my parents' house, and my parents mainly watched them while I did my thing, but also kept an eye on them and kept them entertained. However, my sister assured me that all will be well, and she'll write me a list of instructions to follow, and it'll be easy. I asked if I could have a friend over with me, but she said no, and under no circumstances am I to allow strangers in her house. Anyways, 3 hours in, and a pregnant lady comes knocking, and she was distressed, looking like she wasn't feeling well. Told me she's the next door neighbor and that she forgot her keys at home and has no place to stay until her husband comes back. She also told me that she's dizzy and not feeling well. I felt very conflicted. On one hand, I didn't know this woman and I wasn't sure if she was telling the truth about being my sister's neighbor, so I didn't think letting her in was an option. I called my sister many times to ask permission to let this woman in, but she didn't pick up. On the other hand, I didn't feel comfortable leaving her in that state outside in the cold. I tried calling my parents too, but they didn't pick up. I was basically left to decide on my own. I brought out a chair to the porch and told her she could sit there and wait for her husband if she'd like. I also offered her some water and food, but she politely declined and decided to wait outside her house. She proceeded to wait 2 hours till her husband came back, and I saw her crying at some point. I felt so bad, but I felt like my hands are tied. I tried calling my sister and parents many times, but no one picked up. When my sister came home later that night, I told her what happened, and she lashed out on me, calling me an idiot and saying when she told me to not allow strangers in, she didn't think that she needed to tell me her 7-month pregnant neighbor in distress was an exception to this rule. My parents also later reprimanded me on taking everything so literally and being an idiot. Am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to accommodate to my stepdaughter's new diet? I, 25, have 2 children, 5 and 1 on the way, with my husband. My husband has a daughter, 12. We've got 60-40 custody. In our household, we have a few dietary restrictions. My son doesn't like certain textures and smells. My husband is dairy intolerant/gluten intolerant, as well as not liking certain foods due to texture or smells. I'm not even allowed fish, noodles, or mushrooms in the house, as well as currently there's a few foods that make me nauseated. It's not picky eating for my son. He has global delay. His teachers are trying to get us help for a diagnosis for autism. My stepdaughter's recently wanted to go vegan. At her mother's, she's 100% accommodated, but it's easier there since it's just those two. I tried. I asked my stepdaughter and her mother for food recommendations. I've Googled recipes, etc., and I've even just cut out the middleman and got frozen things. But each time I've tried, either my son or husband didn't like or isn't something I feel she can eat daily. As my husband has said, frozen foods are limited to once or twice a week. So I told my stepdaughter those twice a week we can either make a separate meal together or frozen, but it isn't ideal for me to cook 2 different meals every night when I work nights, and it isn't affordable in the long term. Husband said I'm giving up too early, making custody harder, etc., and stepdaughter's taken to giving me the silent treatment. An example would be tonight's dinner: steak, broccoli, and new potatoes. Only 1 meal. I don't eat steak, so I just had some broccoli because when I don't like something, I just have the side. Like when we had hot dogs, I had some onions in a roll. I know it'll come up that my husband can cook. He tends to over-season things to the point where it's overbearingly salty or nobody but my husband likes it. Am I the jerk? I wouldn't say OP's the jerk, but the husband sounds all kinds of problematic. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to help my sister throw a party and pay for a gift for our parents' 30th wedding anniversary? My sister, 29-year-old female, is our parents' favorite. They've tried to hide it over the years, but for almost all of my 26-year-old female life, it's been made perfectly clear that my parents care more about my sister. They know her favorite food, favorite color, favorite band, and generally things you're supposed to know about the people you're very close to / family. But they've always tended to forget mine and just give me my sister's favorite things. Other family members have pointed it out to them. My grandpa, who was the best to me growing up, called them out in front of everyone on more than one occasion for it. Like when I was 8 and they had a birthday dinner with my sister's favorite dinner instead of mine. Grandpa was like, "What the heck is this? Why did you make sister's favorite instead of OP's?" My parents were all flustered and said it was just a silly mix-up. I would say of the 16 birthday dinners I had with them, 15 of them were my sister's favorites and not mine. The 16th one was only right because Grandpa forced his way into the kitchen to help that year. I was always a gamer and a reader. My sister loved makeup and dolls. My birthday and Christmas gifts were often makeup and dolls. When people used to ask them what I wanted to be, they'd say what my sister wanted to be. I've brought up to them on multiple occasions that it hurts my feelings, but they never change. So I started to become more distant from my parents and don't make the effort I used to. My sister's acknowledged that she's aware of this stuff, but she still wanted me to help her throw a party for her anniversary and to go half with her on this really expensive gift she wants to get them. She told me about it over Christmas. The anniversary's in April. She wanted to go all out, but I told her I'm not doing anything that big to celebrate them and will not be putting all that effort in when they never made it with me. She told me that this would be helping her too. I told her she wants me to help her celebrate the people who show clear favoritism between their kids. She doesn't see the big deal. We argued. She told me I was being childish and that I'm unfair to her / them. She told me that if I don't help with the party and the gift, I'm publicly shaming our parents and leaving it all on her shoulders. Am I the jerk? You guys can decide, but all I can say is, after a lifetime of that, it's hard to feel very motivated to try to celebrate them. This next story is, am I the jerk for not booking the reservation for a place my fiance really wants to go for her birthday? So for my fiance's birthday, I planned a weekend getaway and got us a hotel. She also mentioned that she wanted to try a specific restaurant, but you need to make a reservation. When she told me, I went on the website, but they only let you make reservations a month in advance, and it wasn't yet a month away. Today, she reminded me about the place, and I said, I need to wait a month. But then we quickly realized it was less than a month away. So I went on to book it, and there are no more reservations available. It's 3 days less than a month away, so I could have gotten on the website 3 days ago if I had been keeping better attention. Now she's angry with me and telling me, I told you I wanted to do this, and giving me a nasty attitude. To me, this is really ungrateful, as I planned an entire weekend for her and missed one restaurant she wanted to go to by forgetting for 3 days. But I will admit I'm super forgetful and I should have set a reminder. Am I the jerk? What I'm struggling to understand here is, do you have to call and make the reservation for a month in advance? Specifically a month in advance? You can't call like 2 months early and schedule it for 2 months later? This next story is, am I the jerk for leaving my cousin's wedding and taking back my gift because my dress was inappropriate? Hi all, I, 18-year-old female, recently attended my cousin A's, 25-year-old female, wedding in Australia. Lots went down and I'm getting flack for my dress. We are an Indian family, and A's husband M, 26-year-old male, is white. So there were 2 ceremonies, like the Jonas Chopra wedding. A is my favorite cousin and the one I'm closest to, so I decided to go all out with my gift. My family got them something, and I added a little envelope with a check for $1,000 that I'd saved from working. The Gagra Choli was fine for the Indian ceremony, so I figured the dress would too, because they look similar in color and pattern. However, my dress was deemed inappropriate by M's family, and they approached me saying so. I thought it was because of the slit in the dress, but they all said it looked too pale and unacceptable, even though it was a blush pink with bright, almost neon colors on it. I said sorry, but I didn't have another dress suitable enough for a wedding that I could change into, and M's family seemed mad. I left it at that and went on with my day. The ceremony was beautiful and I was happy for A and M. However, when the wine started flowing at the reception, everything went out of control. I was on the dance floor partying it up with family and friends when I felt a splash down my front. I looked down and I almost freaked because I thought I got shot or something. There was this huge red wine stain dripping down my front, and I saw M's sister, mom, and aunt laughing with M's sister holding a glass. I saw red, and that's when I snapped. I started yelling about how they ruined a brand new dress for a stupid reason. They kept laughing, and I saw A giggle and M grin. That's when I decided I would leave and take back the check. That's when they stopped laughing. M started asking me to stay, and when his fam realized how much money was in the envelope, they started to apologize and talk about how that money could be helpful in this economy. I left because I felt disrespected. Now M, his family, and my parents all say it's in bad taste for different reasons. My fam wants me to keep the peace, but I don't want to give my hard-earned money to horrid people. Now I'm getting texts, DMs, and WhatsApp, and my phone is just blowing up. I refuse to talk to A until she gets her husband to apologize, and she's trying. He just won't. Am I the jerk? Also, I'm from the United States, not Australia for context. Also, at the Indian ceremony, my cousin A wore a maroon red traditional Indian wedding colors, and to the Christian, a white dress. I think OP's not the jerk here. They had two different dresses for both ceremonies, and I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say a blush pink is too close to white. Especially one like OP describes that has like images of flowers and floral prints on it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, click on that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.